Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto surpasses Madara and Hashirama at the age of 6 part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Many ninja knew how that Konoha was built as a place to stop the fighting between two families. These families were the children and descendants of the children of the Sage of the Six Paths. These families had a tremendous rivalry between them that lasted several generations. But this one village was formed to have a single place where the Uchiha and Senju could work, live and form ties with one another. The hope was with time they would grow closer and the fighting would come to an end. There was a secret that everyone seems to have forgotten. These two families made a pact that said if one of the clan was ever Hokage, the other clan would be given the position as well to show that there was no ill will between them. The Senju and Uchiha clan heads knew of this pact and they each agreed to honor their ancestors' wishes. When the first Hokage was named from the Senju clan, everyone in the Uchiha knew that the next Hokage would be one of their clan, so they trained to exhaustion. Training and becoming stronger than their predecessors because if a person was going to be Hokage, the very best of the clan would be called to defend the village and the people. To defend the village a Hokage needed strength, wisdom, and a strong will. But this pact was broken when the next Hokage was chosen, and he was not an Uchiha. Two brothers felt that this would happen. These were Madara and his brother. They knew that the Senju were not to be trusted. So in the middle of the night they left and said goodbye to the village hidden in the leaves forever, for they knew that they could not stand to see this injustice happen, and a tragedy would be born from this one act. Madara and his brother went to live in an island surrounded by a strong sea currents. This was where they found the village hidden in the whirlpools. The two brothers were welcomed by the Uzukage, and eventually each would do the one thing they never believed they would do. They each took in Uzumaki for their bride. Mito Uzumaki married Madara, and they both lived pretty happy lives. His brother married Rishi Uzumaki. Both families eventually heard the news that made most couple very happy, they both were going to have children. Madara was happy to see the smiling face of his daughter Kushina, but because she was a direct descendant of the Uzukage she was given the name Uzumaki. Madara understood. The only thing that mattered to him was that his beloved wife was happy and his child safe. Madara's brother did not have such a happy outcome. During childbirth there was a complication and both Risha and her son died. It was only through Madara and his wife that kept his brother from ending his own life. But these two brothers were not unnoticed by the Hokage and his subordinates. In time the Second World War came to start, but when this happened the village hidden in the whirlpool was attacked. Kushina, just a genin in service of the village, was sent away to their supposed ally of Konoha. Madara knew that she was strong enough to make the journey alone, but he and his brother both stayed behind to protect their home. If Konoha had sent the aid that was requested, the backup and ninja squads that was asked for the Izugakure would have survived, but Konoha sent no aid. Kushina was a genin, but she was also the one to carry one of Uzugakure's secrets. She was the second Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. This lack of support was for the sheer purpose to case that young woman to come to Konoha for refuge. But who would have known that there she would find love in a blonde ninja by the name of Minato Namikaze, and that their child would change the fate of an entire village if not the world. Time skip years later, the fourth Hokage had moved his wife and the wife of the third Hokage to a secret place. Kushina knew that the Kyuubi would take any chance to escape her prison. As Kushina began to go through the pains of childbirth a thing she feared happened. The Kyuubi tried to break free, but what she did not count on was that Madara was there to see the birth of his only grandchild. As Naruto came into the world the Kyuubi broke free and Madara made the only thing he could. Having learned all the sealing techniques of the Uzumaki he sealed the Kyuubi into his newborn grandson, Naruto. Danzo appeared from the shadows and killed Kushina. This Uzu bitch has served her purpose, we have no further need of her. The child will be our perfect weapon, and with it I will conquer the world. Madara hearing this was angry and all hell. Kushina had been bound to her mate by their very soul. When Kushina died, so did Minato. This man would use his grandson as a tool to do his bidding. You bastard, you killed my child and her husband, and you think I will let you use my grandson as a tool? You really think I would ever let you do that? Madara took his grandson in his hands, and with a sad look on his face, gave him a kiss on his forehead. Naruto, nothing would make me happier than to see you grow with my Kushina and her husband. I will never let this man use you, but he is Hokage, and here he controls everyone as puppets. Minato was the only one to escape with his mind intact. So I will send you to a different dimension, a new reality. To protect you, but know this grandpa loves you very much. Be strong my little grandson and break free our clan from the curse of hate. You are my last hope. As Danzo tried to take baby Naruto his grandfather took both of his eyes and as a sacrifice he made a jutsu that no one would dare do. The trans-dimensional jutsu would cost him his very life. But nothing would stop Madara from protecting his grandson and as the jutsu was made little Naruto inherited his eyes. As little Naruto disappeared, Danzo demanded to Madara to tell him where his weapon was. Madara coughed some blood, "Where you will never reach him, I die knowing that he will be safe. My precious grandchild will be free from you." These were the final words of Madara as he activated the seal on his body and a giant explosion happened. Danzo and his subordinates died burned to ashes. To the people that knew of the fourth Hokage's death all wondered what happened to the baby. Sometimes the world is full of tragedy, but sometimes fate takes a chance to correct the cause of these tragedies. Sometimes fate makes a gamble, but they always have a very large effect on the world. Everything was quiet in Konoha that morning. No one could imagine that anything weird or strange was going to happen, but if they only knew how wrong they were. At 6 a.m. a loud cry was heard from the most unlikely place in all the village. This crying it appeared to come from the roof of the Hokage tower. Why would a baby be heard crying his heart out from that place? In the end it did not matter to most people, but it was giving the Sandaime Hokage a pounding headache. I guess drinking so much sake with two of your own students tends to give you a real nasty hangover, and the crying he was hearing was not making matters any better. Anbu, go and check where in all places is that crying coming from. Or so help me, I will find a way to make you feel what I feel right now. The Anbu guarding the office did not need to be told twice. What he found was astonishing. In the middle of the roof was a crying baby wearing nothing except a large piece of cloth bearing the Uchiha fan. Some sick person abandoned this child where the Hokage would be the first person to find him. What did you Tori? The Anbu did not know how to answer, except simply placing the bundle on top of his desk. Mind telling me where did infant came from and why did you place him on my desk? The Anbu was simply smiling and answered, that baby was on the roof of this building, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen was taken back by the sheer cruelty of someone abandoning a child where there was no one to feed, clean or take care of him. But the thing that made him almost fall on out of his chair was when he saw the symbol that was on the cloth that the boy was wrapped in. There was no mistake about it. The symbol was the Uchiha clan symbol, the Uchiha fan. The question began to go around in his head. I don't think anyone would be foolish enough to abandon a child from a noble clan. It would be sheer suicide to even do this to make a child be part of a noble clan. The clan head would most certainly want the guilty party found and punished severely if they did. What do we do with a child who appears to be a member of the Uchiha noble clan? Do we dare place him in an orphanage? I know one thing for certain, if we did without discussing it with Kagami, he would be so angry that I might want to talk to some of the women Jiraiya was peeking at while in the hot springs, at least they would show some mercy. You would think that after the Second World War that there was nothing that could scare a Hokage of his caliber. That there was no situation that could possibly be so difficult that he would go into cold sweat just by thinking about the solution. A problem that made him think the solution was as pleasant as having his tongue pulled by Tsunade while she yells at him what was wrong with him. But there was a problem that big and that scary. For you see, as soon as he called Kagami to his office, he was sitting with a baby wrapped in what would be called a large piece of cloth bearing his clan symbol, and the Hokage had absolutely no explanation as to where, how and who this child even was. So let me get this straight, Hokage-sama. This infant was found on the roof of this very building wrapped with this very cloth, and you have no idea how he got there? Hiruzen simply nodded. And you are asking me what should we do with an unidentified supposed Uchiha newborn? If you are even thinking of sending him to that god-awful orphanage, you better think again. I will not subject one of my clan to that place while I hold life in me. Kagami was more concerned than the Hokage had first imagined. At first he was thinking that the Uchiha clan head was going to be angry that someone could be doing all this to unload an unwanted child onto a clan with prestige and social standing. But with the outburst, he was not angry about what it meant to the clan, he was angry at the possible mistreatment of one of his own. The questions that kept repeating in his mind was, why did Kagami believe right on the onset that this child was an Uchiha? Why did he not question it? Why did he not demand that they conduct some test and find this child's parents? Kagami, could you please answer on question for me? Kagami, having calmed down a little, simply nodded. Why are you so sure that this child is a member of your clan? Kagami could not understand the reason for the question. The answer was quite obvious, the cloth was inlaid with a message, the clan symbol carried all the markings and signs of authenticity. The message was clear as day, this was the grandchild of Madara Uchiha, the message clearly stated it. Hokage-sama, am I to believe that you cannot read the message that is on that cloth? Hiruzen was taken back, what message? Kagami simply picked the cloth and he spread it evenly on the desk as he pointed at the cloth. That message, it is as plain as day. Maybe because you don't have our Dojutsu. Very well, let me and read it for you. To my honorable clan, my name might not be as welcomed or liked as I once was, but I ask that you hold it not against this child. My name is Madara Uchiha, and this child is my beloved grandchild. For reasons beyond my control I had to leave my grandson, but I made certain that he would be at the most secure place and easy for him to be found. If the current clan head finds him or is reading this, I humbly ask you to not abandon my grandson or blame him for his relation to me. I request that he be raised by a kind and caring family of our clan so that he might have a normal and happy childhood. His mother, my son-in-law and more than likely myself, will no longer exist in this plane of existence, but this will not allow my soul to rest in peace until my grandson is safe. I ask and beg you to tell the Hokage of this message and fulfill the final wish of a dying man. Madara Uchiha. The Hokage was amazed to such a long message on the cloth. Why write the message on the cloth and not a scroll? Kagami simply smiled. The message was written using an old Uchiha technique, the use of chakra and blood as ink. This message will not fade unless the cloth is burned by the flames of Amaterasu. This man calling himself Madara Uchiha must have really loved this child. Well, who do you think should raise the child? Kagami simply looked at the blood child and could not help but to feel this child was such a small innocent baby. I believe that this child will be raised by me and my family. I will make certain that his grandfather's final wish is fulfilled. Plus he can be a god sent to my little girl. Mitoko can get some early experience in the care of children. Hokage could only laugh. She is only 5 years old and you are already trying to play matchmaker. What would you tell that controlling wife of yours? Kagami hearing this he too laughed. Hiruzen, I will simply tell her an old friend and his family died due to natural disaster in a village outside of Konoha and that we had decided if that his grandson became an orphan, I would take responsibility for him and raise him. As to being a matchmaker, who knows? They might see each other as siblings, but if this child grows to be a strong kind young man. Consider who his grandfather is. He will be strong, and if this child could eventually make my daughter happy, why wait? This child might be the savior that my clan needed all along. And so began the life of Naruto Uchiha and the head family. Would Mitoko see him as a friend? A brother? Or something else? And would this stop the evil schemes of Fugaku's parents? Kagami did not get along with them so well. They would do anything and other to get power and get ahead. Only the heavens could know what was stored for Naruto, but if his smiling face was any indication, Kagami did not have much to fear. 1 month after the appearance of the baby on top of the Hokage tower, and the boy looked just like you would expect a healthy baby boy from the Uchiha clan. Naruto was sleeping peacefully in his crib and a young Mikoto looked at him smiling. He sure looks cute, don't you think so, mom? Her mother was smiling too. He might be cute, but you should see how he eats. He drank 15 bottles of formula. The young baby was sleeping, but something made him frown every once in a while. Naruto had very good senses and he was getting a smell that was making sleeping not so easy. You see, today was the day that the Uchiha practiced fire jutsu by collecting and burning the dry leaves that fell in their backyards. The smell of smoke was not so bad for most people, but to little Naruto was like he was surrounded by it. It was 7 o'clock in the morning when it happened. The smell was so bad for him that he simply began to cry and it happened. He was being carried by Mitoko's mother when she was passing a smoking pile of leaves and after the strong cry there came a gust of wind out of nowhere and blew the smoke and leaves away. Kagami saw that since he was the one that burned the leaves in the first place, well, either Kami did not like having a child near all that smoke or little Naruto could not stand the smell and blew the leaves away with wind chakra. If he did, this kid is going to give the other clans competition when he gets in the academy. Kagami said as he smiled and laughed all the way to the kitchen. Little did he know that the leaves would eventually land on Nara that was enjoying seeing the clouds. What else could happen to me now? How troublesome. Time skip 2 years. Little Naruto, since having learned to walk, his parents began to train him and now in his 2nd year on training the child had no difficulty at all in walking, running, jumping and performing small acrobatic moves. On an impulse they even tried to get him to use chakra through his limbs, which turned out to be a major success on one side and a source of constant worry for the matriarch of the Uchiha family. This child was completely obsessed with training. As soon as he began to learn to read, there was no book that the child would not want to read, well, all except subjects that his mother called either disturbing or plain dishonorable. Naruto was now wearing kids' cloths of a 2-year-old, all black and some parts of his shirt red. He never seemed to wear anything without the color red, it was his favorite color. His mother used to joke that maybe he would end up in the assassination division of Anbu one day because he liked the color so much, but there was something he liked to do even more. He loved to sneak around where Mikoto was and get her to relax and smile. Mikoto was sure that little Naruto had a bit of a crush on her, but the fact was that he knew him for 2 years now and she used to joke around with her friends that if Naruto grew up really strong, kind and handsome, she would marry him. In the back of the house where Kagami and his family lived was a large library and for some reason he used to joke that it was Naruto's favorite place to hang out. At age 2 he had read an impressive amount of books of all kinds. His reading went from physical training to meditation, from ninja skills to the skills of trades such as tailor, carpenter, builder, healer, and blacksmith. This was also included things like meditation, strategy, and history. From the books he already did the one thing no child should be able to. He designed a training schedule that would make most genin beg for mercy. He was sure that he needed to push himself to protect his family and he would show no mercy to those that threaten his family. Naruto however was plagued with nightmares, especially of an old man wearing what looked like samurai armor. This old man would not leave him alone, it was him that really taught Naruto how to read and every night it got worse. He showed him scenes of battle, missions that failed and asked him why had they failed. He of course had no idea that this was Madara having left an imprint in his grandson's mind to make sure he was properly trained. The night came and the time he dreaded came, the time to sleep. What would the old man show him now? What horrible thing would he be told or shown? How long will he have to endure this and most importantly why? As he fell asleep the old man smiled as he saw Naruto open his eyes in his dream. Why you are shown this for you to become strong, why must you endure so that your loved ones be safe and how long will this go on until the time I see that you are strong enough to bear the burden of a family? Naruto being a ninja might seem like playing to you now, but it is a very hard dangerous and sometimes unrewarding life. This is a life of service to others and those others will appreciate the things you do, but not always. Now for today's lesson. There is a simple jutsu one that will help you learn and do many other things. This jutsu is forbidden to regular ninja, but since you have continued to train I am proud to say you can summon one a day, but if you use them often you might be able to summon 5 in 2 years. This jutsu I am going to teach you cannot teach it to anyone else unless the Hokage approves. Now follow my hand signs, you learned hand signs last year and I know you will be able to keep up. Madara went through the signs of the shadow clone jutsu and Naruto did too. The only difference was that Naruto was just practicing the hand signs he was not using any chakra. When Madara felt that he had the signs down, he told him to use chakra and use the jutsu. Naruto stood at the center of what looked like a dojo and went through the signs in rapid succession. Just as he finished the last sign he shouted shadow clone jutsu. Madara was expecting to see 2 Narutos, but to his surprise, he saw 10 clones around Naruto. Madara began to laugh, boy with your chakra control as bad as it is, I would not be surprised if you fainted right now. Hey old man if my chakra control is so bad, then tell me how to get better instead of taking pot shots at me. Madara could see that his grandson had some guts to be able to stand for himself. I was going to just teach you this jutsu, but in recognition of your bravery to speak your mind and desire to grow stronger, I will teach you something that will help. The dream changed to a forest. Try and do this. Coat the bottom of your feet with chakra and try and stick to this tree, but be warned that too little and you will fall, too much and you will damage the tree and fall. Madara said this as he walked up and down the tree. The reason you are in this forest is because all of you, that means all 11 of you will do this exercise till you wake up and them after on your own time. Naruto and the clones tried to do what they were told, but Naruto and the clones managed to walk 10 steps and all of them fell down, ow, that hurts. Madara simply told him to stand and land on his feet. For the rest of the night he kept at it and finally was able to keep standing on the tree trunk, that is when he heard a loud ringing. Well it is time to wake up, wouldn't want to keep Mikoto waiting now would we? As Naruto woke up he remembered the jutsu and the tree walking exercise, but decided not to tell anyone out of fear that they might consider him something not normal. Kagami and the family had their breakfast, they talked about Mikoto's time in the first year at the academy. She also told them that there were some boys that been picking on her. This made Naruto very angry, so much so that the glass of water he was holding began to form bubbles, as if the water was boiling. Kagami looked at Naruto and smiled and simply said, Naruto as much as I appreciate a cup of tea, we do have a stove to boil the water, take it easy or you might break that glass, and that hurts. The family had a quick laugh as he mentioned that, well all except Naruto who at that moment was plotting his revenge. He needed to find a way to sneak into their classroom and he needed to know where they sat at. A nice coating of glue on some nice sharp metal tips and he would get even on those that bullied Mikoto. But he needed training. Stealth from some books, metal tips from a blacksmith that threw them away for lack of quality, glue from his house, and how to get it a tree walking exercise. Yes these fools would pay for bullying Mikoto alright. As Mikoto left Naruto gave her a small hug and she returned it. As she left he went to the backyard yet again. When his mother asked he simply told her that he was either going to play or read. Lies to be sure, but the matriarch believed Naruto or so she made him think. Naruto looked around and saw that no one was there. Shadow clone jutsu. And 10 Narutos appeared, okay, now on to Operation Payback. 5 work on the tree walking, 2 go gather the metal tips and the rest practice the stealth by trying to find who it is that is bullying Mikoto. All the clones looked at him and asked, what are you going to do, boss? He smiled and simply did a hang signs at the end of the sequence he looked at the air. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. He looked at his clones, nothing much just making a fire or 2, now get going. He did not know that his mother was looking at him and listened to everything he said. So my little Naruto is plotting to do some payback. He must mean the bullies that bother Mikoto. I sure hope that boy doesn't go overdo it. The clones managed to find out who it was that was bullying Mikoto. They were 3 boys from what looks of it the Hyuga clan. They did not bother to hide the bullying, so what if a brat sees them, who was going to believe him? The clones looked through the window and saw where they sat all in a row right behind Mikoto. All the clones dispelled at the same time as each finished their assigned task. This was a mistake since Naruto tripped and fainted from all the memories coming back at the same time. When he woke up he was on his bed. I need to dispel one at a time to give myself time to get used to it. His mother was agreeing with what her baby boy said, can't have him fainting like that in an important mission. Especially Operation Payback. She left some wood glue that would work for his little scheme out in the open. 10 days later was a day that lived in the minds of 3 very angry Hyuga for a long time. Naruto managed to use the tree walking exercise to get to the roof of the academy. An Anbu saw him and was following him from the shadows. As he reached the roof he jumped from there to the door and walked very fast to where the class was seated. He waited for the teacher to tell them that physical training time was next and for everyone to go warm up. Not a single of the students noticed him, and as they left he got to work. Made 3 shadow clones, 1 to watch the door, the other 2 to help him coat the seats of the bullies with glue and place 6 metal tips on where their back touched the seats. Let's see those jerks try and bully my precious ones again after this. He walked up the wall and onto the ceiling and walked all the way to the roof. No one would expect a 2-year-old to do that. He simply sat down and waited. That Uchiha sure is easy to beat since she can't activate her precious Dojutsu. That will teach her that there is no clan better than a Hyuga. The Chunin instructor came in and told the class to sit down. That is when it happened. All 3 felt a sharp pain on their back. Ow, something bite me. The teacher wanted to make sure they were alright, told them to get up from their seats but every time they tried they couldn't and would end up pushing against the back of the seat yet again. Ow, I can't get up teacher, and this really hurts. The teacher did not like to be told that they could not obey his order. He simply grabbed one of them and broke the student's seat until he saw what was really happening. The glue, the tacks, and the placement of them a perfect booby trap. He was sure it was a fellow classmate. He asked and no one knew who could have done it. The 3 bullies would have to activate their Dojutsu just to make sure their seats were safe from now on. Mikoto simply walked towards the roof to eat her school lunch in peace, but there she found someone she was not expecting. Naruto, what are you doing on the roof? Naruto simply smiled to the grin and said, oh, just wanted to keep you company while you ate. Mikoto kissed him on his forehead. That is very sweet of you, Naruto. As Naruto began doing his secret training and the imprint of Madara not leaving the boy alone on a single night, the effects started to show after the first year. He was stronger, quicker, smarter and more skilled than the average little boy his age. His parents could not be more surprised when a man decided to try and steal the purse of his mommy, was Naruto called her. He did snatch the item in question. His mother could have stopped him easily, but she figured that it would be wrong for a fully trained jounin to injure a civilian that was so desperate for money that he fought to do such low-handed and despicable things. Naruto however was not a ninja and not registered as such, but he simply was not going to let some crook try and do something like that to his mommy. He had been eating a set of dango that Mikoto bought for him for helping her carry some really heavy supplies she needed for the next class day. In truth the class were assigned into teams of 3 and they were supposed to get the item together. But the other kids in the teams were lazy. One wanted the home assignment to fail, so he be moved to another team, and the other simply said that the task was too troublesome to even try. Naruto saw a sad Mikoto at the schoolyard and when he heard what the other 2 said and that she was going to fail because of them, she simply offered to help. But Toko was surprised. I mean he was supposed to help with a job by doing the work of 2 guys at least 5 years older. How was he supposed to do that? Shadow clone jutsu. 10 Naruto clone appeared from what looked like a smoke bomb going off. Well, this made the work that much easier and since they helped her finish the work early, the teacher gave them a pair of free dango coupons. Having eaten 1 stick he saw the creep take his mommy's purse. He simply took the dango stick and did yet another jutsu he learned in a dream. Shadow kunai jutsu was whispered as he did the hand signs and throw the dango stick. The second he did where there was 1 dango stick became 100, pinning the crook against a wall. He got up and looked at him with so much hate that the crook was thinking that this was a nightmare. Steal anything from my mommy again and you will not live to see the next day. Got it. The crook was who it was and knew who his mom was. He simply nodded before fainting. He left the crook pinned to make sure he remembered that. Mikoto was still seated eating her dango when Naruto casually walked in with the purse in hand. Honestly, Naruto, people are going to talk about something like that. You know that you are too young to be doing that. Naruto simply laughed and mentioned, who would believe them anyways? A boy not even for doing jutsu and pinning a crook like that. Mikoto had to admit that he made sense. The civilians would never believe it because it would be too incredible and the ninja would never acknowledge it because they would see that a little boy barely going to be 4 actually did a jutsu most genin would have trouble with. The ignorance of the civilians and to keep the reputation of the academy would keep this incident from spreading. Little did Naruto know that not all the ninja would ignore it. The Anbu commander watched the entire thing, he had even watched Naruto train. He simply could not wait for the little boy to get to Chunin so he could send the application to have him in Anbu. Tsukumo Heikate knew talent when he saw it, and that little boy would eventually be a welcomed addition to the Anbu Corps. His mom however was not happy one bit. What would happen if Naruto missed and ended up killing a civilian? He might have good intentions, but the way to hell was paved in good intentions. Her son would be he able to cope with the shock and stress of his first kill before he was even a student. No, her little boy had to be protected. If it meant not being so relaxed with pickpockets and purse snatcher, she would do it for her little boy. The life of Naruto was like that till he reached his 6th year, and not once did he deviate from the training, and not once did he complain. The other Uchiha parents felt like the little boy was pushed by the sheer responsibility of being the son of the clan head, others felt like the parents demanded too much from him, since everyone in the clan considered them elites. But when the mother of the bully that picked on Makoto began to try and say that his mommy was an abusive parent and that she was pushing Naruto so hard in hopes to kill him, that is when Naruto really began to show the fruits of his training. No one, and I mean no one, makes fun of my mom and gets away with it. That was the thing that was heard, and in a matter of seconds he eyes opened to see the 3 tomo in each eye, but he was really mad, and the thing that scared this foolish Hyuga woman more was that the way the eyes changed into the Magenkyu stage. How did a child have that Dijutsu evolve to that point? That was the last she said out loud. Naruto was so angry that the little boy yelled at the top of his lungs, "Tsukuyomi." In an instant the Hyuga was trapped in the Genjutsu. The little boy in a cold stare simply walked to the women, "You are in my world now. I control everything, and when I am done with you hell will seem a vacation." The Hyuga knew that she was in for something bad, but how much could a little boy do? That is where a 100 kunai appeared and began to launch themselves at the woman. In a matter of seconds she was hit by all the kunai in places not deadly but painful. That was 3 seconds. You still have 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 57 seconds to go. She was crying and pleading, "Naruto, I simply was trying to protect you. I think a little boy should enjoy their childhood. I meant no harm to you at all. I was only trying to make sure you are happy." Naruto looked at her, there are ways to do things, and then there are ways to do things. Inviting a person to tea and expressing in a civil manner your concerns about how someone is raising their kid is one. No parent is perfect, there is no manual to raise children. But no, you decided to humiliate my mother, like your good-for-nothing son. The lady knew nothing about the bullying her child had done. Naruto stopped the punishment just to tell her every single incident her child had been involved in, the pain, humiliation, abuse he inflicted on his fellow academy students. By the time he finished, the things he told her hurt 1,000 times worse than the kunai ever did, and as she cried she simply asked, "Do you not want to play Naruto? Do you not want to have friends? Do you think your childhood is normal?" He simply looked, "If you promise to take care of your child's bullying and decide to talk to my mom in a respectful, civilized manner. But be warned that if you don't do something about the bullying and decide to do something like this to my mother yourself or with the help of someone else you will be back here and no manner of pleading will stop the time that you have left. This is just suspended and give you a chance. Am I clear?" The woman felt like she was at Anbu torture and interrogation. She was in a great deal of pain, bleeding and crying, and between sobs she promised that she would do it, but for Naruto to forgive her. As the last word was spoken the Genjutsu broke and she did not have a mark on her, tears were seen but no injury. Naruto looked at his mother after deactivating his Dijutsu and told her that his mommy was going to be alright. She cried and hugged Naruto. Little Naruto had tried to defend his mom and used a high-level Genjutsu. On the one side she was worried about her son, but deep down where she did not even notice she was extremely proud. This one incident did make it to the Hokage and the Anbu commander, and they both decided that if he could use the Magenkyu Sharingan, then he needed to begin training in the academy immediately. In the academy he would learn what can and what should not be done, and to learn some limits in the use of force. This was to protect the civilians that due to their ignorance, they might do something wrong against his family, and if someone injured his mother, there would be payment in blood. They both would not be surprised, Naruto would defend his family to the point of actually killing someone, and with his Dijutsu to that level, he could kill a squad of genin faster than it takes them to say ramen. So was the day that Naruto was admitted to the academy, and Mitoko still had a few more years to go. She was happy, since Naruto would be going to the academy. They could walk to school, eat lunch, help him with class stuff and walk home together. Mitoko was really happy about that. Well, to say that Naruto for the first week of class was bored was clear for every teacher to see. The thing that Naruto found most boring it was that it was the same thing over and over again. History first, theory on ninja abilities, for the guys health class, and ethics, and birth control and STD prevention practices, for the girls, seduction, cooking, dancing, and ethics, and of course birth control and STD prevention practices. To Naruto they always felt like why divide the class at all. Guys needed to learn how to cook, dance and especially to notice when someone was trying to seduce them for their own benefit. Ethics were the same thing all over, birth control and STD prevention, why separate the two? Again they both needed to know this stuff. Just cutting the time it took the two to divide would save a ton of time. Now what they did not teach is the things that Naruto really made him upset, how long till he was going to get a basic 8 class. Weapon maintenance. Field cleaning and field survival skills. Not for the foreseeable future it seems. So the same things repeated 100 times each and every single day. One of his teachers even tried to hit him on the head with an eraser because he had fallen asleep, that's how dull it was. But there was one thing that was fun. Taijutsu spar and weapon accuracy practice. He really had to try hard not to maim or permanently injure someone. He could throw shuriken and kunai with his eyes closed, but again had to fake it, had to miss some targets intentionally. Did not want to appear to be a show-off. Otoko did not agree on that point, if he was that good he should show it, if they lack physical training, they students would get much worse from the crooks and enemies they were going to face. She said during a lunch break a good beating between fellow students was a much needed wake-up call. The more Mikoto talked with Naruto the more she ended up thinking of her misfortune. If only Naruto was in the same class as her she wouldn't have to be apart from him all the time they were in shared classes. Naruto was getting pretty sick of the way the academy was doing things, in secret he even began to write a list on the modifications he would make to the classes and the way the academy worked, he got the info he needed from books and from the way Mikoto talked about her own classes. Mikoto did not get her wish in aspect, it turned out that instead of her helping him with his classes, he ended up tutoring her on hers. She joked that if he understood her classes, why not take the final exams for each year and skip a few grades. He had to admit that was not such a bad idea, the teachers would sooner cross-dress than allow it, but it was a good idea. At the second year seeing Mikoto closer to the final year and the time where she would be in another team away from him made him decide. He needed a way to be allowed to get into her genin team, so he decided to make a bet with the Hokage. He simply decided to put all the changes that he would do to the academy, and if they worked he won and would be allowed to take the final exams for as many classes as he would pass, if he really wanted to he could probably graduate in 2 weeks. But if he lost he would never complain about the academy and be really happy to be in any team the teachers and the Hokage decided. Now Naruto spent an entire evening making sure all the papers were clear, that all changes were easy to understood, and most importantly that his appointment with the Hokage was set and that the assistant would not dismiss it as a kid seeking attention. The Hokage looked at his appointment schedule and saw one name that he did not imagine to see so early in the morning, Naruto Uchiha. Proposal of changes to the academy. What would a little boy know about the things wrong about the academy? Well, he did make the appointment through the proper channels and with the right paperwork. His parents must be helping him. On time and in an appropriate way Naruto was present to his appointment, he mentioned all the potential wasted time by separating the classes, how such wasted material could be better used in materials that were needed but not taught, medical aid and field skills in class, and expand weapon usage to include more weapons for the students to see what kind of weapon would suit their particular way of fighting. Teamwork and non-verbal communication also were added. The D-rank missions could be used for that very purpose as practice. When asked who would supervise he simply said that the village had a good number of retired ninja that would love to help with that. The new generation would learn from the experienced older generation, making each generation better. And last but not least why hear the history of the Sadame Hokage when they had the man alive and kicking to give a guest lecture. He was called the professor for a reason, right? The Hokage simply told him that he would love to, but with all the paperwork he did not have any time. That is when he simply said, why don't you use the shadow clone jutsu? The shadow clones can handle teaching or doing the paperwork. He told him that needed to know what the paperwork said, the one that cast the jutsu learn everything the shadow clone does. So what's the problem? At this point he could not believe it, all this time he had tried to beat the monster, the bane of all Hokage called paperwork. And a child in his first year in the academy pretty much delivered the perfect weapon to kill said monster. Naruto had to watch as a crying Hokage slammed his head on the desk and called himself stupid each time he did it. Little did he know that in heaven all the previous Kage were doing exactly the same thing with a wall. Kami was laughing her head off. So Naruto, for the changes I will study them and see if they can be tested next year, and for the secret mission of destroying the Kage Bane. Your payment is one wish, if it is within my power I will grant it. Naruto simply smiled and answered, can I take the final exams for a few grades and be placed with a class that I can learn something new? The Hokage did not see a reason why not, I mean if he passed he would already know the material, if he did not the teacher would know what he lacked. It was a win-win. So he agreed to have these tests after each class day. 3 per week at least as time allowed. Makoto was very happy to hear that her classmates were not, and especially the teachers. The teachers could not disobey the Hokage, they had to give the Uchiha brat a chance to show off and make them all look foolish. But they were not going to make it easy. For starters, the teacher of each grade made a written test that they would have a hard time passing, given the time limit they imposed, and for physical test of physical exams that would make normal chunin cry for their mamas. If the kid passes, we will be laughed at by everyone in the village. They had to make a test to really show this Naruto his place in the world and that he did not know what as much as he believed he did. This would save his life and their honor. The next class was as dull and boring as ever. Then came the time Naruto really wanted. The test. He had 30 minutes to answer 100 questions and not a one was multiple choice. He sat down and in 10 minutes he answered every single question, checked them and walked to the teacher and said, "Done." The next part was the physical skills test. He had to hit moving targets while blindfolded with a single kunai and a single shuriken. With the shadow shuriken and shadow kunai jutsus, he cleared the targets in a second. 10 out of 10. Even the teacher did not know that could be done so quickly. So he told Naruto to sit down so he could read the written test. After 5 minutes the teacher was upset, not a single wrong answer. To jutsu he had to fight against a chunin and the teacher expected the kid to be afraid. The chunin threw everything he knew at the kid, evade, counter, evade in one final throw, and the chunin was out cold. He was happy to tell Makoto that he passed to the final exam and advanced 1 grade. It would take longer because the teacher really did not want him to pass, so they did limit his final exam chances to 3 Wednesday and Friday. The day was Monday, so he had to sit in quiet and respectful for an entire day for 3rd grade. Naruto simply smiled at her and said he could use the time to take a nap and maybe learn a new jutsu. Makoto did not understand why he would say that. Learn a jutsu while you sleep. In his dreams the imprint of his dead grandfather kept teaching him Kaiten jutsu exercises. Just like when he taught him how to awaken his Sharingan before he was even 4 years old and how he used the Tsukuyomi to force him to attack and kill the person he loved the most, Makoto, and then he forced him to kill his parents. The shock and grief of killing the people he cared for most awakened his Mijinkyu Sharingan. At age 5 he had begun his training in the use of this evolved jutsu after learning that he would not go blind as most would. He simply asked his grandfather if he could teach him some Fuitin jutsu as well, being the imprint of a loving grandfather he did, but Naruto would always want to learn more. If his teachers knew that the supposed show-off had mastered all the Kaiten control exercises, they would begin to take him more seriously. The next day he would be introduced to a new classroom, the students being shocked to see a younger boy as their new classmate, but if they only knew that it was temporary. A new subject was introduced, but with 150 shadow clones at his disposal, he was not worried one bit. He had the subject learned by dinner time. The new teacher heard what he had done before and kept the same mindset, put the show off in his place. The only sad thing was that the classmates did get used to him the first day. Little did they know that was the only time that they would share a classroom again. The same thing happened the next day after class. A teacher that was sure the punk would fail, a student proving him how wrong he was, perfect scores and yet another Chunin in the hospital. This situation was something that the Hokage could not believe. In a single week Naruto jumped the 3rd, 4th and 5th and now was on the 6th where he finally did not pass the test. Little did he know that he did that on purpose. Just to be in the same class as Makoto. If you could look into Makoto's mind, Chibi Makoto was jumping around using the V sign and smiling like she just won the lottery. Her classmate were not happy at all. A kid 5 years younger was now sitting in their classroom as a classmate. When it came to Taijutsu he proved to them that he indeed deserved to be there. The bullies in his class all said that they would fight him together after class. Well, one thing can be said about Konoha General Hospital, they do have plenty of beds. And thanks to Naruto the doctors and nurses got plenty of practice. He never held back anymore. If he was like this with allies, Kami have mercy on his enemies. It was the 2nd month since Naruto came to be in Makoto's class. To her it was a good sign that Naruto was with her. To some of the girls in class, it was a time that they tease her with calling the two Uchiha the unofficial couple of their class. The guys wanted a shot at Naruto to prove to the show-off that one of them should be getting all the affection from the cutest girl in class. When Makoto told him that if Naruto could share his training schedule and methods with Makoto, the entire class nearly fell out of their seats. If Motoko got as strong as Naruto, why even bother telling them about the top positions in class would be decided after their final year. If she did follow his training then it could be decided right now. They would be Naruto and Makoto, no doubt about it. But to the horror of the entire class, their teacher heard that and decided that the entire class should try a similar training regimen. They did not walk home after class. Since then, they practically crawled home. Makoto looked at Naruto and asked him day and night to help her awaken her Sharingan. For an entire week, she asked him non-stop for him to help her. It was then that Kagami told Naruto that to have some peace at home. Please, Naruto, help her so that I can have some quiet in here. Please. His wife was laughing her head off when she saw her husband do that. Using the Tsukuyomi Jinjutsu, he did just that. She learned to activate and deactivate her Jinjutsu. She was happy to be able to use it, but not happy that it was currently at one Tomo in each eye, while Naruto, who was younger, had a fully mature Taijutsu. If you train and work really hard, you will make it. Naruto kept showing his very best during class and in practice, but there was one thing he would always fail at, no matter how many times it happened. That was when someone, it did not matter who, where or even when. If you picked on Mikoto, there would be Naruto to make the person pay, and it usually ended with one more bully or one more pervert in the hospital for various wounds, be they cuts, burns, or even broken bones. If you were a student in that class and wanted to live long enough to graduate, the thing you must never do is bully Mikoto Uchiha. There was one idiot that decided to peek at Mikoto while she was in the public hot springs. Well, Naruto prepared a specially nasty punishment. He trapped the idiot in a Jinjutsu when 30 brawny guys wearing speedos were madly in love with him. The Hokage himself thought that was so cruel that when he told the chief of torture and interrogation about it, he simply began to laugh. He has a bright future in this department if we ever manages to recruit him. I would recruit him right now, but I have to wait till he is Chunin first, darn. The Sennin Orochimaru strangely was actually in a very good mood for several weeks after that happened. Well, as for Mikoto, she finally asked why Naruto would always protect her. He simply smiled and told her that she was precious to him. Nobody will mess with the people he considered precious, and if they did they would see hell while still living. Kagami was impressed with what he said, now that was a loyal person. His mother, being in a rather teasing mood, she just said that maybe Naruto was in love with Mikoto. This made both Mikoto and Naruto blush so much you would expect smoke to come from their heads. The last 2 years came and went, and because that dream training, by the time he graduated, he had mastered his Kaiten affinity, shadow clones, Taijutsu and Kenjutsu. The only thing he did not master was his Fuiten affinity, but he was very proficient at it. Mikoto had mastered her Kaiten and Raiten ninjutsu. For weapons she mastered the scythe and the gunbai. Naruto favored the katana and the double trench knives. But the thing was, Naruto always seemed to be having chats and played shogi with the Anbu and their commander. Why would the Anbu and their commander play shogi with his on their free time, you ask? Simple, they couldn't beat him. As of today, Naruto Uchiha is the unofficial shogi champion in the Anbu Shogi divisional tournament. He has won that championship 3 times in a row. One Anbu won it using what he called a move that the man called the Naruto Gambit. The only clan that decided to never participate on the tournament again was the Nara clan. They believed that the chances of them winning it while Naruto played in it were so small that the clan head said, and I quote, "It would just be too troublesome to even participate." Some of the ninja council wanted to ask the Hokage why not name Naruto for some recognition officially. Instead of always his accomplishments being unofficial and basically secret. He simply said that Naruto played shogi for the fun and that everything he accomplishes is just training. He wanted no recognition, and if he ever was recognized for anything, it was his earnest desire to protect the people precious to him. As for the bully from the Hyuga family, he suffered a tragic incident that made it impossible to graduate. I mean, how can someone do the duties of a genin if the person was blind? Eye transplants were not possible. The damage to the very nerves that connect to his eyes were, as some would say, damage beyond possible treatment. His mother screamed that Naruto must have done it, that he sought revenge on what her son did to little Mikoto. The truth of the matter was that he was addicted to fumes from a rather unusual paint. The paint was even discontinued due to the toxicity of the fumes. But when smells, it caused hallucinations and increased release of endorphins. The woman never got over this fact and never admitted that her son was addicted to the paint she once used to paint pictures as a hobby. The Uchiha also had a few problems. A Chunin by the name of Fugaku had made several petitions to the clan head that to have an arranged marriage contract drawn. The marriage would be between himself and Mikoto, the daughter of the clan head. Fugaku was very specific that he wanted to marry her as soon as she was of Chunin rank. Naruto was present when he made the request. He interrupted Fugaku and told him that Mikoto would never be forced to marry anyone against her will, and if they tried he would call for a duel to the death on the person who tried. He was basically saying that someone would force Mikoto into a marriage over his cold dead corpse. Mikoto was so surprised by his reaction. Why would Naruto do that? Why would he put his life on the line like that? He grew up with her, but was it possible for Naruto to actually have romantic feelings for her? The questions were never asked to Naruto and therefore they went without answers. 2 years later, the academy graduated the class that had the 2 top students to earn perfect scores in all tests. The top Kunoichi was none other than Mikoto Uchiha, but the thing that shocked everyone was that Naruto Uchiha was called the top ninja student. A very upset Josa Akimichi and Inoichi Yamanaka were seen as the 2 runner-ups. In the history of the academy, there had never been a student that graduated so young from the academy, but the question that was on all the minds of the jounin and the teachers was who would be the dead last. It turned out that the dead last was none other than Koji Inuzuka. The kid spent so much time napping that he actually had to do remedial attendance classes to even graduate. If the formula to put teams together held true, the team would be Mikoto, Naruto and Koji, but who would be the brave jounin to want the position of teacher of this group? The Anbu commander specifically asked for leave from his post to be the jounin teacher of this team. Tsukumo Heikate took a leave from the position he loved just so he would teach this team. As that was not surprising, maybe the fact that Orochimaru wanted to have young Naruto as his apprentice, but he told him that he would never abandon Motoko. Orochimaru understood and was very happy to hear that it was for something as important as loyalty to his family. The D-rank missions were just as horribly boring as what he believed. Missions my foot, they were chores. This only made him believe in his reforms even more. But the strange thing was that they were still debating whether or not to implement some of them in the council. After having caught the Fire Lord's cat for the 6th time, he simply did what he should have done in the first place. He simply used the Shadow Clone Jutsu and made 200 clones. Then he ordered them to finish as many available D-rank missions while he and his team trained and did teamwork exercises. Tsukumo was not opposed to it one bit. He used to think reading reports all day was bad. I guess he forgot how dull these so-called missions were. The Hokage did not make matters easy though. He made it perfectly clear that Team Heikate was to be limited to 10 D-rank missions a day. The clones had been doing them so quickly that the other teams were left with nothing to do. The jounin teachers felt that their teams would never meet the necessary mission completion requirement to move to higher rank missions. A few teams also felt if that happened, they would be genin teams till either they had been married or till Naruto was jounin, whichever came first. Mikoto was still following Naruto's training schedule, and the thing was Koji was doing it too. Not doing it in a good mood, as he used to complain to Naruto instead of to Tsukumo. He called Naruto a slave driver every chance he got. Naruto simply ignored the comments from him. When he notices the results, let's see him complain anymore. Yugaku was the other problem. He was constantly trying to do two things. Get Mikoto to give him the time of day and get someone to try and kill Naruto. He was failing miserably at both. Mikoto was very happy to spend time with her training partner. If the way they acted, they were teased something awful by Mikoto's new friends. The Toad Sennin had gotten finally a student, and after a daring rescue from the same student, he got himself a girlfriend. Minato and Kushina had met truly at the academy, but the feelings and romance came after the attempted kidnapping of Kushina. Months later, the couple was as in love as any couple could be, and they both shared a hobby. Tease and torture Mikoto about her love interest Naruto. Look, you train together, eat together, and live under the same roof. When are you just going to make it official and tie the knot already? Minato told her as Kushina and Mikoto were trying to have a nice lunch together. If Naruto had been there, she knew that they would tease her, calling it a double date. But surprisingly, Naruto was also busy sometimes. Helping the research projects of one of the Sennin was busy work. Orochimaru, or as people would call him, the Slug Prince, was walking through the park one day and heard someone talking to himself. It had been Naruto, and he had tried his best to figure a way to cure the Sharingan blindness that came to the people of his clan after they awakened the Magenkyu Sharingan. If he made his theory and method to awake it public, there would be one clan of blind people before too long. He needed to find a cure. Orochimaru was surprised to hear a genin trying to figure something that had plagued the clan since they first became aware of the problem. He went to Naruto, who was too busy to notice. So you want to find a cure? How about they receive the eyes of the dead clan members? He had though of that. No, that will not work. Even though they would be from the clan, there was always the risk of organ rejection. The only one I came up with was to clone the eyes of the person after they awakened them to that level. This would prevent rejection and loss of ability. Orochimaru had to tell him that was not such a bad idea, but our cloning techniques are not that advanced yet. So the pair came up with a plan to help him and tried to improve their cloning techniques to meet the required level. This was slowly being done by Orochimaru, allowing Naruto access to all his medical books and advanced biology, chemistry and analysis books as well. With a small army of shadow clones, Naruto was learning as fast as he could. He did not use that many of them to complete the 10D ranks that he did daily. Kagami was completely sure that Naruto would be an excellent successor to being clan head eventually. But Naruto had been quite clear, Mikoto was to be considered first. He would not have time with his own research and missions by then. When Tsunade heard the experiments being done to improve cloning, she jumped at the chance in helping them. The Snake Princess, as some called her, did not do this out for the public good. She did it because if she could clone herself in a young version of herself, then if she figured a way to transfer her mind to the clone, she would have what she wanted all along. She would obtain eternal youth. After all, who deserved to be young forever if not someone as beautiful as herself? Tsunade would get the genetic material for the experiments, and Orochimaru and Naruto would try various methods to improve the cloning and stimulate the growth of the clone tissue. But at some point Orochimaru took over the research alone. The council wanted the team led by Tsukumo Heike to take higher rank missions. Much as he wanted to continue the research, Naruto knew that he had to do what was best for his entire team and not only his own clan. With a heavy heart he told Orochimaru, and he understood. His first C rank mission was going to be assigned the next day. He wished him good luck to his research partner and he wished him luck on the research. Maybe he could send reports and he could try and think of any way to help when he had free time, if he had free time. The day finally came for Naruto and his team to take a C rank mission. Hokage same team Heikate reporting for duty. As the Hokage looked up he saw the team. No need for formalities, I have a perfect C rank mission for all of you. It is an escort mission. A businessman needs escort back to his home in Wave and is afraid that some business rivals will try and kill him. Could you please send Mr. Gato in? Hokage mentioned to his assistant through the intercom. As the young woman appeared she led a short round man to the desk. I am happy to see you Hokage, but where is the team that will escort me to my home? The Hokage simply told him that the teens and Jounin present were that team. Gato could hardly contain his laughter. Hokage, I have no doubts on someone of Jounin Tsukumo Heikate, but these kids are not even old enough to work in my company. How much protection can they provide? As soon as he said that the teens were upset, Naruto without even thinking vanished from sight and appeared with a trench knife in hand behind Gato. He held the knife to his throat. I assume that is a good enough demonstration for you? Right, sir. Gato was sweating bullets. Well, I guess I was wrong, sorry to underestimate you young man. Naruto simply walked toward his teammates who were looking very happy. Team Heikate be at the gates in 30 minutes, Mr. Gato you have nothing to worry about. My team does not fail. Tsukumo Heikate finished giving orders to his team and they all vanished using the body flicker technique. Gato was the last to speak, at the very least this trip will not be boring. A few things to clarify and to avoid any unpleasant feelings. The reason I have Naruto learned Shadow Clone so early was to jumpstart his training. I always felt that he was not given a fair chance to show his true potential in either manga, games, or even anime. With his being the top of the class no one in the clan would argue that he doesn't meet the standards of someone being suitor to the clan head's only daughter. Secondly, it would be the only way for him to train non-stop and still be able to attend the academy. The academy would that hours away from his training, so he attend the academy and leaves a few clones to train back home. I would have expected, if not understood, that someone would send me a flame or two about making Gato the original villain, but everyone is upset that I switched the roles between Orochimaru and Tsunade. In this story Orochimaru doesn't go insane because he will eventually be Hokage. Which is one of the reasons of his insanity. Tsunade in the original version is so obsessed with maintaining her youth that she is under a permanent jutsu just to look young. I also figured that she would want revenge on the village that would eventually take Dan and her brother from her. But lastly Tsunade was convinced by Naruto originally to become Hokage. She hates the job, she even went as far as to say that only fools wanted. This was I figure I was making at least two of Senin happy. But trust me that Jiraiya will be the same pervert, oh excuse me super pervert that we all know. Naruto will give him a few broken bones when and if he peeks at Mikoto or anyone he considers precious. But he will be the same pervert. I originally was thinking him liking his own gender, but I kind of saw the vision of thousands of flames flooding my email and thought that I really should not upset my readers that much. Now lastly I am doing this to provide with an entertaining story that will provide everyone with a little fun, food for thought and a few laughs. On story-wise I always believed the Mikoto and Naruto deserve a little happiness and I hope that you would feel the same. Now that I spent a ton of words on this, let's get back into the tale of Naruto Uchiha and his romantic adventures with the beautiful Uchiha heiress and all the problems, pain and fighting that comes with life as a ninja. As Team Heikate left with their client something did not feel quite right about the job. Gato had spent a good deal telling them about his goals to open more trade routes between the land of Wave and the nearby lands. He did not believe that he should put as he said all his eggs in one basket, but as they walked Naruto saw something that upset him. There was an eyesore on his path. He told Tsukumo and his teammates to stop, we haven't had rain in weeks in this part of Fire Country. I mean look at the grass and you would see that. But we are supposed to believe that there is a puddle in the middle of the road. I mean come on how obvious can you be? The demon brothers did not like the sound of this one bit. Well Naruto I think if someone is dumb enough to make such a pathetic attempt they must not be that strong. The Inyazuka could smell their sweat already a few feet away. Just as he finished a clone of Mikoto appeared right next to the puddle. Lightning release. Paralysis strike jutsu. The lighting hit the puddle and where there was a puddle two unconscious ninja appeared. It was a lucky thing that they had been connected by a chain through their gauntlets. Naruto looked at Gato with an almost feral grin, so Gato, I think we should hear the truth while my clones tie up our expected guest. Because I can easily see that they wanted you. We have no enemies in Kiri after all. Especially those that are now missing Nin. Gato could not keep his lie any longer. It was very well known that you cannot lie to an Uchiha with his Dijutsu active. Very well, I requested a lower rank mission because of my low cash flow at the moment. My country of Wave has always depended on trade by boat, but in a bad storm many of the boats were damaged. I wanted to improve the trade routes and decided to form a partnership with a builder named Tizuna. I figured he would want the bridge to prevent others losing a family member because of having to go by boat in such a bad storm again. His son-in-law died in the storm I mentioned after all. He left a young woman named Tsunami and a bright young son Inari. But it turns out Tizuna wants to use all my money to enrich himself and take credit for the entire bridge project. He might believe that by doing this he would be made ruler of Wave eventually. The money I do not need to maintain my trade business I have invested in helping the people and the bridge project. So I figured if I was attacked, maybe I could get enough evidence to expose Tizuna and finally be able to complete the bridge. It would improve the lives of the entire country. I am sorry for lying to you, but please I beg you. Not for me but the innocent people, they need your help. I will pay the right rank fee once trade situation improves, I swear it. Tsukumo was listening to him and figured that their situation must be desperate for them to do that. Naruto and Mikoto were looking at him with loathing in their eyes. To them the lie was a disrespectful act. The Inyazuka being the dumb gun-ho knucklehead that he was looked at it as a potential good fight. So team, I want you to think on whether we continue or go back home for another team. This job just jumped from C rank to A. Well, you figure it out. Naruto, leave a clone with the team, you come with me and we will question our little friends back there. Naruto and Tsukumo walked towards the Tide Demon brothers. Very well, let's make it easy, why did you attack our group? I know you wanted to kill our client, who hired you, what are your orders, and who else should we expect? The Demon brothers simply told the two to go to hell. They were not going to say a thing. Tsukumo gave a look to Naruto that made it perfectly clear what he wanted him to do. Oh, why don't you got to hell first? Here, let me give a small taste. Tsukuyomi. In matter of seconds the brothers were spilling their guts about everything under the sun. They even told things that they did not want to know, like the fact that one of the brothers still wet his bed till he was 10 years old. Clone dispelled, and Tsukumo and Naruto walked over to their team. So what do you decide? Go on or go back for another team? Naruto walked over to Mikoto, put an arm around her in a reassuring way. Looks like our team wants to help this guy out, something about if we help trade would improve for our village, wanting a good fight and such things. Well, I hope that we can deal with Zabuza because that is what those two told us was in charge of the team that wants Gato dead. Every single person wondered for how long did Tizuna steal money from the project to be able to hire someone of his caliber. When Naruto and his team reached what looked like a small river, the one thing that made Naruto take up his sword was what he saw. A white rabbit in the middle of summer. Ah hell, that rabbit was raised indoors. Everyone look out, we are about to be attacked. Koji, being the idiot that he was, did not believe it. Tsukumo looked at where Naruto was pointing at. He took his blade in hand, seeing that and understanding what Naruto was saying. The attack happened and only Naruto and Tsukumo were ready. They blocked the sword throw at them and it went flying back and got stuck on a tree. Tsukumo, hey Kate, no wonder the Demon brothers lost. Who would believe the fabled White Fang was guarding the midget old man? Gato did not like that one bit. Mikoto and Koji were sweating and could hardly breathe from the killer intent sent their way. Naruto and Tsukumo were ready to attack. So the White Fang only has one true ninja and two wet behind the ears pretenders. Naruto simply would not stand for anyone calling Mikoto that. He threw a kunai and managed to hit Zabuza across his cheek. Was it something I said? Zabuza looked at Naruto. You don't insult my precious person and get away with it. Zabuza and the hidden Haku was laughing. Noted, but shouldn't you worry about your useless client? A pair of water clones appeared to attack him and Tsukumo. He quickly killed the attacking him, but that was a mistake. Water release. Water prison jutsu. The other clone used the water to trap Tsukumo, he could not move. Zabuza took the position of the clone and kept Tsukumo trapped. Well, here is the deal, if you defend your client you might keep him safe, but that will take time. In that time I will drown your teacher. Or you can let my clone kill your client and I will let you all leave alive. Not a bad deal. Naruto was sick on this bandaged wearing freak. Here is a better deal. You leave now and you might make it to a healer to save your sorry sick life. He quickly bit his thumb and with a bloody summoned a friend, summoned jutsu. Lightning Fang. A big yellow wolf appeared. Let's get lunch buddy boy, said the wolf. With one hand he made 5 shadow clones and ordered them to keep the client and team alive. He and the wolf attacked the clone and nearly shocking Zabuza, well the name was sure fitting to this particular wolf. Zabuza had to release the jutsu and Tsukumo was free. Zabuza had to give some credit to the boy, he did free his teacher and kept his client very well covered. Zabuza Mamachi now had to deal with the worst possible situation. Not only he had a genin with a pretty sharp mind, Tsukumo Heikate master of lightning jutsu and a particularly upset lightning loving wolf, The way that brat called those clones also managed to make him think that the situation could be worse. If he summoned 5 so quickly, he could summon a small army and a small army of what looked to be a Che. That was not something you come out of alive. Haku was hidden to provide backup, but till the count was 3 and possibly 13 versus 2. He needed a way to even the odds. Well, the only positive was that there was no way a genin could have awakened his Dojutsu. If he had, then it would be pretty sure be tough to beat, he could copy all his jutsu. But what were the chances of that happening? If Zabuza only knew, he would have been gone from there really quickly. "Boss, do you mind if I get a first crack at the mummy wanted?" Tsukumo laughed when he saw that Zabuza did not like his new nickname. "Sure thing, Naruto. Knock yourself out." Naruto looked like he won the grand prize at the Konoha lottery. "Why don't we keep it up a notch?" was the first thought that came to him. He did a long series of hand signs, and when he did the last, Zabuza was not happy. Fire release. Great fire of annihilation. The next second a giant wall of fire was headed his way. Mikoto was smiling, one roasted missing nin coming up. It was only by the use of the water release. Water encampment that he made it out with only a few burns. Naruto realized he really needed more practice with that jutsu or have a clone use a wind jutsu to feed the flames. He really wanted to leave nothing but ash out of his enemy, much like he did for a few yards of woodland. Zabuza was now really worried that brat can do jutsu of this level. A small Zabuza was praying, "Please, Kami. Let this brat not have those eyes awakened. Because if he did, I am toast." Well, he was thinking that he did not notice that he indeed have what he was praying so hard not to happen. He looked at Naruto and what he saw was a fully mature Sharingan. He believed that it must be a henge, a ploy to trick me. He began his own jutsu, but the genin copied his movements. The only thing was Naruto was just a little quicker and finished first. Water release. Twin dragon jutsu. Zabuza was hit by the full force of the jutsu, and when he hit the burned tree that was behind him, a pair of sembo hit his neck and he dropped to the ground. "Hey, thanks, I have been hunting that rogue for weeks. That distraction really was a blessing," said Haku appearing from the shadows. Tsukumo walked up to the hunter nin. "So you are a hunter nin from Kurigakure. Be sure to send our regards to your cage." The hunter nin smiled, "Well, if you excuse me, I must get rid of the body and I will sure mention your aid to our cage." The hunter nin picked up Zabuza and left. "Tsukumo, may I say something?" Tsukumo looked at Naruto and with a nod gave permission. "You know that hunter was a fake, right? And that more than likely we will have to face her and Zabuza in about a week." Tsukumo merely laughed, "Well, with those burns, I guess we need to get the client home and have a week to train." Edo was not sure why he mentioned the young masked person was not real. Mikoto said to him, if the hunter nin was real, she would not have moved the body. She would destroy the body where it is. The sembo to the neck put him in a state of shock that simulates death. Painful, but very easy to do if you have the practice. Looks like this mission keeps getting more and more interesting. Maybe they would manage to get some real practice out of it, the two Uchiha believed, but to the Inuzuka was just a major pain. As Naruto and the others came to see what wave looked like, they began to realize the trouble they would have. The place would make jutsu very easy for a Kiri missing nin. The rogue nin had an extremely large supply of water for his use. Gato simply lead them on a tour of the town. To say that the team was taken back by the sheer poverty of the place would be like saying Jiraiya loved to peek at women bathing at the public hot springs. Edo decided to end the tour with a visit to his company offices, which also doubled as his home. As Gato went inside, the place looked a little too humble for such a big businessman should have. He simply explained that he spent most of his money to either make sure the business stayed open. His business provided a lot of jobs to the people. The other was what he called social improvements. He opened a school, a small medical clinic, and a small food storage for in case of disasters or shortages. I would like to know why Tazuna is the way he is. Mind telling us, Mr. Gato? Tsukumo asked, wanting to know a little more background information. Sure, but please, Gato is fine. I started this business a long time ago, me and my wife worked to make it a success. My wife Tsumiya was the love of my life, but between work and my social improvement goals, I had very little time to spend with my wife. It was during one of my many attempts to keep the romance alive in our marriage that I made two discoveries. The first was that my wife was pregnant with our first child, the second was that Tazuna was trying to get my wife to have an affair with him. My wife was brutally raped by Tazuna one day. How our child survived inside my wife is a mystery, but she did. But Tazuna made her believe that my life would be endangered if she remained married to me. So using dirty tricks, Tazuna stole my wife and my daughter. Makoto was not happy to hear that. If she ever found this Tazuna, she would want to teach him why you should not treat a young lady like that. Koji was thinking on how Naruto would react. He believed that he and Naruto would be pretty sure that Tazuna signed his own death warrant for doing that. My love gave birth to a healthy baby girl which Tazuna named Tsunami. And later my daughter got married to a local fisherman and they had a child named Inari. Fishing is a relative safe job, but on heavy storm season it is not. Tazuna is a builder. He knows next to nothing about the dangers of a boat or the problems of a fishing boat to be specific. He forced Tsunami's husband to work non-stop because he would provide no money towards the needs of the household. Between his heavy drinking, gambling and money he wasted on building equipment he did not need or would use, he wasted all the money he ever made. During one bad storm my son-in-law Tsunami's husband died trying to save the lives of the crew of his fishing boat. This was why I tried to find ways to improve trade and came up with the idea of a bridge. Something that the storms would not do much damage to. My commitment in this project even extended to ally myself with the one person I hated most, Tazuna. If I could put behind everything he did for the good of the people, why did he not do the same? Beto walked to a window and looked outside. The bridge should have been finished 5 months ago. I did not believe in the excuses Tazuna gave. I began to investigate the financial records of the project and found that Tazuna was embezzling heavy amount of construction materials and money. When I saw this it became clear, Tazuna wants to have sole credit for building the bridge. I can guess that if he steals enough money and materials he could break up our partnership and finish the bridge with what he managed to steal by then. If the situation improved thanks to him alone, he could push to be made leader of Wave and be granted opportunities to further increase his own wealth. At the expense of the people of course. Naruto had one question nagging him, why not tell your daughter about this? Gato looked sad as he heard the question. It was an obvious question, but the answer still managed to cause him pain. Gato simply smiled at the team that was keeping safe and helping him. Naruto, I can't tell her because all her life she was told that she was Tazuna's daughter. She would never believe that her father would be the cause for so many people suffering and that he would eventually kill my beloved when he was not able to conceive a child with her. I must expose him for the evil man that he is, or my child and grandchild will always be under his control. Tsukumo was thinking and could come up with a plan. What we need to do is earn the trust of Tazuna, trick him into letting us into his home. There we could search for some hidden evidence. If we could get that evidence then maybe, just maybe we could stop his damage to the project and complete the mission with you being able to rejoin your daughter and grandchild. Beto did not know how. Tazuna's hired thugs would not miss the chance to inform him of them working with him. Thanks to the burns Naruto gave Zabuza, we have a little over 3 weeks. We can pretend to be Kiri missing Nin that are backup for Zabuza. During this time we train and look for incriminating evidence. There should be plenty of time. As for the fake hunter I don't think she would act without Zabuza. She more than likely will watch us to see what she can exploit. If Tazuna was willing to betray Tsunami's husband and the people, there might be evidence of him planning to betray Zabuza and the hunter. If that is the case we can turn 2 enemies into allies. Naruto, Mikoto and Koji knew that if the plan worked they would be able to complete the mission, improve trade for the village, and maybe could offer positions to Zabuza and the hunter Nin. A chance to be able to live a life without being chased by hunter Nin was something they would see to be to the liking of Zabuza. But they needed evidence and time was against them. The idea was simple. The original mission was just to escort him to Wave, so they had the paperwork for that. They could simply leave Gato and walk around until they met Tazuna. Tsukumo could talk to him in a bar, pretend to be drinking too, and pretend to be his friend. While being all friendly he could ask if there was any good paying jobs. Naruto was sure that once Tazuna saw their teacher's headband, he would want to hire him to do some of his dirty work. Eliminate a rival or spy on someone. True enough, Tazuna was so drunk that he could barely walk straight. That is when Tsukumo began his act. Well, life sure sucks. I am given an order just before my dang gone vacations to escort this cheap creep. I am going to be the laughing stock back home. Tazuna waddled his way where Tsukumo was drinking all alone. Hey, buddy. Couldn't help hearing. What you need a good paying job. Tsukumo looked at him as if he was drunk. I need a good paying job like we need stronger liquor. Tazuna saw his headband. He immediately was thinking these stupid ninja are so easy to fool. Well, tell you what, I need someone to help me do some things. Keep my family safe from crooks, help me build that bridge out there. You saw it right. It will be the great Tazuna bridge when it's done. I might need someone to kill a trespasser that keeps begging me for money and his little whore. Tsukumo looked at his in what appeared to be a drunken stupor. Hey, man, you know I ain't going to remember all that after we get done drinking. Could you write us what you want done? Tazuna looked at him. Sure thing, no problem. I will write your team orders like I was your big shot back on your home. Tsukumo laughed, well at least you are more relaxed than the Hokage. Tazuna had bitten bait, hook and all. Mikoto and Naruto had used a henge to look like a married couple with a little boy as their son. Koji was stuck playing the son. Naruto simply was looking at the place and saw a pretty black-haired woman helping a little boy with the groceries. He walked behind them and picked a bag, here let me help you out. Tsunami was happy for the help, thanks mister. It gets tough carrying so much stuff by ourselves. He and the team helped carry the things to her home. If you don't mind me asking, why are you in town? They all entered the really nice house and sat at the living room. Oh, my wife and I are looking for work. I am a contractor. I help fix houses or build new ones, my little treasure. That is, my lovely wife is an excellent cook and interior designer. My son usually keeps playing with the kid of the family we work for. This keeps the kid safe and my boy busy. This little pup there is trained guard dog, that is Akamisu. Oh, I could always use a hand around this big house, and dad is always in the lookout for someone to help with the bridge construction. It has a long way to go after all. Sorry, but I forgot to ask, what are your names? I am Tsunami, daughter of Tazuna the bridge builder. This little boy is my son Inari. Naruto smiled. Well, I am Naruto, and my lovely wife Mikoto. There is my son Koji and his little pup Akamisu. The little pup barked. I am sure glad to meet such nice people. Well, the best thing to do is to try and make a good impression on dad. Mikoto, mind helping me with dinner? Naruto, I have a few cracked windows that need fixing, you mind doing that? And Koji, why don't you go outside and play with Inari? The team was situated to begin their work. Tazuna would be exposed within a couple of weeks. This place would be free of his evil. Mikoto really liked how Naruto talked about their pretend relationship. She wished that when she married she would have a nice, respectful and loving husband like Naruto was pretending to be. Koji was not happy one bit. For 2 weeks he had to pretend to being a little kid. I guess the plan to train went out the window. Little did he know that they would still train. He taught him the shadow clone jutsu, just like he had Mikoto, and the clones would train at night far away so that everyone did not see them. Mikoto and Naruto did the water walking exercise, and Koji was learning the tree walking exercise. Haku was spying, ordered by Zabuza to spy on the new people that lived at Tazuna's house. He did not trust them one bit. When Tazuna drunkenly managed to drag himself home, he was greeted by 2 adults, a kid and a puppy. Tsunami was waiting for her dad and she helped him walk towards his bedroom. He completely ignored the people or his drinking buddy who went by the name Shinji. Tsukumo saw that his team had managed their part of the plan. Tazuna, on the way to his bedroom, he simply could hardly walk straight, or so he tried to make it look like that. The sick bastard was instead doing his very best to grope and touch Tsunami in the most inappropriate way possible. She tried to keep him from doing that, but nothing she tried worked. Her father was not really her father after all. People always believed that her husband was the father of Inari. This was just a lie to hide the shameful and horrible truth. Tazuna, when he lived with his supposed daughter and her husband, did something awful. During one of her husband's fishing trips he tied Tsunami to bed while she was asleep and he raped her. Inari was actually Tazuna's son. Tsunami continued to obey the evil man to protect her son. If she did not sleep with him, nothing would stop him from trying to do something to Inari. Deep down she wished that anyone would kill this bastard. But after years of waiting she had slowly began to lose hope. She hoped that the new family would be spared from Tazuna's evil clutches. The next morning Tazuna had both a hangover and a million Ryo smile. He was told what the family wanted to offer him as sort of work, and Tazuna, being the greedy bastard that he was, accepted. Mikoto was to work in the house helping Tsunami with the housework, Naruto would help the man in his construction of the bridge, and Koji would keep Inari out of trouble. The pay was meager, the hours horrible, and the attitude of their employer disgusting. But they had a mission to do. The first day on the job Naruto was greeted by seeing half the construction crews pretty much giving Tazuna a very rude comment onto where he could place their dismissal forms and walked off. Tazuna was not happy, and when he was not happy he went drinking. Leaving Naruto alone, the other half of the crew left too. Why stay and listen to the new guy? He was quick on realizing that visibility was horrible. So he made 200 shadow clones and had them do the work of the construction crews that left. He managed more in one day than the entire crews that had been there. Tazuna would never notice, he was too busy drinking and writing orders to his newest ninja henchman, Shinji. They included harassing businesses into giving Tazuna protection money, stealing materials to be stored for his own use, and making people that opposed him disappear. In truth, Tsukumo went to the people he was supposed to kill and told them to leave or their lives would be in danger. They left towards Konoha during the night. The food at the house had improved 100%. The place looked sparkling clean and Inari was not causing any sort of rackets. Mikoto had found several papers detailing his future schemes and a contract for Tazuna and Haku's life. He wrote in his journal that after they were no longer useful, he could have them killed and collect the bounty that was on them instead. This was all copied and replacements for the documents were switched for the originals. This continued for 5 days until the fated meeting between Haku and Naruto, who was having a nap in the forest. It was his day off after all. Mikoto had given a copy of the papers dealing with Haku and Zabuza. They planned to make himself an obvious target by sleeping near where healing herbs grew. Naruto was pretending to take a nap when he felt Haku getting ready to stab him with a sembo. Boy, for such a nice girl you sure have mean ways to treat people. Naruto told Haku with his eyes closed. Mind telling me why you are trying to kill me now? She looked at him surprised. I remember you. You are the one with the hidden leaf jounin and the one who burned my master. Naruto opened his eyes and took the sembo from her hands. So milliseconds Hunter Nin, it is nice I get to talk to you in private. She blushed at his comment. If you think Tazuna is going to pay you, then you are the one dreaming. I have some documents that your so-called master would find very interesting. I have all the evidence I need, but what I really need is for your master and you to testify against Tazuna in the city council. I will give you 2 weeks and 4 days. That is how long Mr. Mummy would need to heal, right? Haku took the documents and looked at him with a questioning look. What would keep me from taking these to Tazuna and exposing you? Naruto was walking away when he was heard saying, because you are smarter than that. True to his words, 3 weeks after their fight with Zabuza, he showed up on the bridge. Gato was doing an inspection on how much more materials were needed. With a heavy blast of mist the entire bridge was covered and nothing could be seen. Zabuza simply walked towards Naruto and whispers. Tsukuyomi, let's go. He did as Zabuza asked and he found himself tied to a cross. So what do you offer for our help? You know I want that backstabber dead, right? So what can you offer me to go along with the plan? Naruto looked at him and smiled. I see you enjoyed my reading material. I offer you a place in the Konoha Ninja Corporation. No more being hunted, able to earn a decent living, and you and your daughter. At least I think that Hunter Nin is your daughter. A rather good life, if not a whole lot better than what you have now. As the Jinjutsu was released he simply heard Zabuza say one word, deal. Tazuna was getting tired of waiting for Zabuza to kill Gato. So he screamed, Zabuza, you worthless sack of cow droppings. Kill that midget already. Zabuza did not move an inch. Nah, I will speak with the city council and tell them what you hired me for. Not to mention deliver photos about what you've been doing to your daughter. Tazuna knew the jig was up. If the council saw those photos and heard his testimony then he would be in prison for a long time and everyone knows what would happen to him in prison. Good thing I hired these thugs to kill you. I will collect your bounty and get rich just like I planned. Shinji killed the worthless guy in the bandages. Well, Tsukumo could hardly believe his luck. 100 bandits were hired by Tazuna. But out of nowhere the 100 bandits were seals in a giant dome of ice mirrors. A voice of a young woman was heard, don't worry about these creeps. Leave them to me and capture the sicko. Tazuna was living his worst nightmare. Naruto, Mikoto, Koji and his dog on one side and Zabuza and Tsukumo on the other. He knew that escape was impossible, so he tried to do the only thing he could. Jump off the bridge instead of facing the music. Naruto threw a series of shuriken and pinned him to a column. Like a butterfly fit for a collection. The original documents were delivered to the city council and the materials that had been stolen were returned to the bridge. The council gave Tazuna a sentence of 350 years of hard labor in a maximum security prison. With the help of all the construction crews that ever quit or were fired they finished the bridge, Gato got his family back, Tsunami and Inari hugged their misunderstood relative. Inari turns out was indeed the son of her husband after all. As the team, Zabuza and Haku following he wondered what the bridge would be called. The council wanted to name it the Great Gato Bridge, but Gato mentioned that they finished it so quickly because of a single contractor. Naruto had done most of the work and so he deserved to be recognized. The Great Naruto Bridge was the way for Wave to remember him. A single man can make the difference. Zabuza and Haku were indeed welcomed by the Hokage and the ninja of the village. But the situation between Sand and Rock was getting worse. The ninja of the Sand village had begun to look for something or someone and there had been fights between the hidden Sand ninja and the hidden Rock ninja. The situation was not good, but how long till open war happened? Naruto was back home and asleep when he awoke in what looked like a sewer with pips on the sides. He simply walked towards the heavy sounds of breathing. Until he came to a giant gate, the word seal was plastered on it. In the shape of an intricate lock. So my little jailer finally decides to come and greet me. You know you shouldn't keep the queen of the ninth circle waiting. Something bad could happen and I would not be there to keep you safe. My little Naruto. Said a giant red-haired fox. He simple smiled, I've been busy, you know how it is, I get no rest. Madara's imprint appeared too. Well, since we are all here why don't we get down to business, I still have something to teach my precious grandson. Madara pointed at Naruto. This was going to be a very interesting conversation. After 30 missions and a very heated competition. Naruto, Mikoto and Koji were all promoted to Chunin. Tsukumo Heikate was breathing easier to be sure. The time as a Jounin teacher had been difficult. If someone had told him that leading a team of genin was easy now, the only thing he could scream at that person would be liar. The missions that his team had become more and more dangerous. The situation between Rock and Sand was getting worse by the day. Minato, Kibito, and Kushina too passed. But unlike Tsukumo the village was not happy to see this teacher no longer leading a team. Jiraiya having free time it would mean that the women of the village could not enjoy the hot springs as much. But thanks to the Hokage ordering him to start recruiting possible spies in other villages and towns, he was kept busy. Orochimaru was doing great at his research, the cloning techniques were getting closer and closer to being able to copy an organ. It would not be much longer than a person did not have to fear losing an organ as a cause of them no longer being able to carry their ninja duties. The cure of the Majinyu Sharingan blindness was getting closer and closer. Naruto was training even harder. If the situation was bad with the imprint of his grandfather teaching him when he was asleep, now he had Kurama teaching her own style of Kenjutsu and demonic ninjutsu, Jinjutsu and Taijutsu. If Naruto believed that Madara was a slave driver, he would be reconsidering his choice of words. Kurama had been what everyone pictured a demon would be. Endless torment and pain with little to no mercy. She knew her end would come soon, the time when Kushina used her own tailed beast mode. She knew that there could not be two nine-tails beasts at the same time in the same plane. She knew the fight between them would happen soon, and so she needed to train Naruto as much as she could. Her own survival was at stake. But this severe training was doing something horrible to the way Naruto was growing. He looked like he was aging faster than he should. His body had begun to grow faster to accommodate his growing strength, chakra, and stamina. To everyone was funny how his clothes would not fit from one morning to the next. Until one day his hellish training came to an end. Kurama had finished teaching him everything she wanted to teach him. If you looked at Naruto after his training and said that he was 5 years younger than Mikoto, you would not believe it. The training had caused him to look the same age as Mikoto. Mikoto was not unhappy about it one bit if she felt that Naruto was cute before. She felt now that Naruto was right down handsome. She looked at his face, his muscles, those hard abs. The daydreams she would have about him, the blush on her face and the many times she began acting like a lovesick girl were also increasing. Minato and Kushina were what people called in a solid relationship. The other students teased them that they sometimes behaved like an old married couple. Minato used to make comments to Naruto that he behaved like he was whipped. Naruto simply turned the argument on Minato and said if he was any different. That tended to stop the teasing from him for a little while. 2 years and the teams grew by leaps and bounds. And that was when the thing most people feared happened. Suna and Iwa Ninja had begun fighting each other in the territories of the allies of Konoha. It appeared as if the Third World War was to begin. The Hokage, due to his duty to protect their allies, was forced to declare war. The Third World War begun with border disputes, but now there was no stopping it now. The Hokage decided to protect their allies by setting camps led by especially strong Jounin. Danzo, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Tsumin Yazuka, and Tsukumo Heikate. These would lead their forces. Orochimaru only agreed because thanks to Naruto the last steps on his cloning treatment was coming to completion. Tsukumo of course asked that his own team be in the camp he chose to lead. He would lead the camp that was in the land between Suna and Konoha. The teams of people would live in small groups to minimize detection. As Mikoto and Naruto got up the morning of their deployment, they both gave a kiss to their parents. If there was something that Kagami hated was not being able to go instead of them. No parent liked to risk the lives of their own kids. Since his training, Kurama and Naruto had settled for would be called a scene almost like siblings. When he was alone, the demon fox would tease and make jokes at her bro. As she came to call him that. So bro, when are you finally going to show that you got a pair? Tell that chick you are so hot and bothered for that you love her already. It is pretty sad seeing my bro not being honest about his feelings. Naruto began to think in answer. Kurama, for the last 100th time, we are going to war. The last thing she needs is for me to distract her, or worse, I don't need a heartbreak by being told that she only considers me her brother. So drop it already and help me pick some clothes. Thanks to the way I trained, I had to end up wearing some of dad's old clothes. Alright, you are no fun, Naruto. Let's get to the store. I don't imagine you want to look bad in front of your secret love interest. Naruto began to curse himself for ever linking his senses to the fox. She never let up, she kept dropping his annoying little remarks and about wanting to be an aunt eventually. Give me a couple of nephews and nieces to spoil, she said. He simply need to remark that she was stuck inside him, and even if he did have kids, how would they see her? This often stopped the aunt business and started the depressed Kurama bit. He could never win. Kurama was always there and always getting into things his sister would better leave alone. The stores looked like any regular shop in the Uchiha district. The one place he liked he had to never visit again. Fugaku had become a major stockholder in it. The condition was that as long as he was a stockholder, Naruto Uchiha would pay 300% more for anything. Hokage did not know about it, but the one store doing that he would have simply told him to shop somewhere else. He walked in front of what looked like a rundown building. But there was something in the air, the smell was something off about the building. Hey sis, am I going crazy or do you smell that? Kurama laughed. Bro, how can you not notice it? It has all the markings of a weak human Jinjutsu. I started getting the stench from a block away. A store hidden by a Jinjutsu. He walked into the building and slammed both hands on the ground. Jinjutsu release. The shop interior changed into an incredibly well-organized shop, except that the customers wore all masks. Oh, all places I had to try and buy clothes that I end up in a shop for Anbu only. My teacher Sakumo would laugh his head off when he hears about this. Kurama was already laughing all 9 of her tails off. "Young man, you are mistaken, this shop is available to anyone that can figure out the genjutsu," said a tough-looking hawk-masked Anbu. "It only happens that only Anbu have done so far," said one of the shop clerks. He looked like a brawny tall man with blonde hair. "So what can I help you with, Mr. Uchiha?" He told him he would deploy to the war soon and he needed some new clothes and gear. He got 5 pairs of Anbu pants, Anbu-style shirts, steel-toed boots, headbands and fingerless gloves. All of course in black and with highlights in red. The flak jackets were the exception. One of the lady Anbu joked that it looked like something a samurai would wear. The shop owner mentioned that indeed it had extra plating for the arms and abdomen. It was mostly red and the highlights were black. With the Uchiha symbol on the right shoulder. It looked like a seal of some sort. The owner told him it was a cloaking seal. Activated and it would hide all his weapons from view. He paid the clerk for everything and was surprised by the fact that Sakumo Heikate was a major stockholder here. "Oh great, how much more would I need to pay above the regular price?" As all the Anbu began to laugh, "Our former commander is nothing like that bastard Fugaku. He became a major stockholder, so we Anbu can buy things at a discount. I am sure he placed his own team on the list." The Hawk Anbu was right, he was on the list. "Well sir, you mentioned needing gear, what would you like to get?" Naruto smiled. "I need a Kaiten katana, 50 Futon shuriken, 50 Futon kunai, and 1 Futon gunbai." Well, this was a major purchase, and the owner knew that the total sale even with a discount was making his store a good profit. For shops like him, there was nothing better for business than a good war. The shop owner walked up to him. "I am Makoro Namikaze, sorry for the late introduction, and don't worry, everyone here knows who you are. Naruto, would you do me a favor?" Naruto gave a nod. "My son is going to be in the same camp as you are, so is my future daughter-in-law Kushina. I would like to stick close to him when you can and keep that knucklehead out of trouble. If he is alive and his captain doesn't give me complaints, I will give you a special Futon katana I've been making." Naruto simply told him it was a deal. He was going to back up his fellow leaf ninja anyways. As he got everything in a massive sack, the same cat-masked lady Anbu tried to make fun of him. "So how are you going to carry all this stuff home? You need any help?" He simply looked at her and made it clear he did not. "Especially since 50 shadow clones appeared, we got it, boss. We will take the stuff and get it ready with the scrolls. See ya." All the Anbu, especially the cat Anbu, had not expected that. Shadow clones jutsu without hand signs or needed to call it out his orders. The same idea crossed the minds of every single person in the shop. "Kami, I am sure glad this guy is on our side." The day was over, but not without getting dressed in his new clothes and walking outside to see if his family approved. For a second the Uchiha matriarch felt like Madara was in her house. She got close and saw the hair. "Naruto, don't scare me like that. I swear if I didn't know any see your hair, I would think Madara Uchiha was back and still seeking revenge on the village." Naruto could not imagine his grandfather having such a vengeful mind. He simply asked if he looked good. If the blush on Makoto's face was any indication, he did. She just got back from getting gear and weapons with her friend Kushina. She ran home because she could no longer stand the teasing her friend had subjected her to. Honestly, if he made one more comment about when is she going to jump that hunk of hers, she would lose her mind. The very next day, they left towards the camp of someone Makoto and Naruto both knew very well. But as they stopped for a brief rest, he got something from a storage scroll. Naruto gave her a beautifully detailed gunbai. She was so happy that she could not keep it in any longer and gave him a kiss on each of his cheeks. He had to hinge to hide his blushing face. "If that face were any redder, we might have gotten spotted by the enemy, bro." Naruto ignored Kurama's comment. He was enjoying the memory of those kisses a lot. As Naruto, Koji and Makoto reached the camp, he clearly saw that it was a collection of tents surrounded by stone's walls. The use of chakra was obvious on the walls. This camp was made using earth-style jutsu. The three were graded by Sakumo Heikate, who was in charge of the camp. They both gave him a nice smile, and so did he. Captain Heikate, Naruto Uchiha, Makoto Uchiha, and Koji Inyazuka reporting as order. Naruto told the smiling captain. "You need to relax, Naruto, you are working with me again, no need to be so formal." Naruto was about to argue that he was not being formal, just behaving in a disciplined way. But as the last word was said, the growl from the stomach of both the Inyazuka and his partner Nindog was heard. "Let me get this straight, Naruto pushed you three to get here in one day, when it usually would take a group 3 days. Right?" Makoto smiled. Naruto looked at the ground embarrassed, and Koji and his dog just looked upset. "Look, go and eat something, alright? If those stomachs sound any worse, the enemy will find us that much easier. We have to deal with Suna Ninja, they are experts in wind jutsu." Captain Heikate ordered the three. Mikoto simply told Naruto to come with her to a nearby wall. When he got there he looked at 2 lunch boxes she had prepared the night before. "How about we eat together, I know you will love what I prepared." Koji was very much like his nindog. They both loved meat, but in the climate they were at, it meant no fresh meats, so their meal was nothing more than jerky. Plain, unseasoned and dry jerky was not what most people would call a meal, but the nindog and ninja ate there with gusto. It was fairly quiet, and after the captain finished his meeting with the rest of the jounin, he assigned Naruto and Koji a tent, and Mikoto could sleep with one of the medic Kunoichi. Naruto was not too happy about it, but Mikoto simply joked that this way they would rest and not be worried about giving in to their carnal instincts. This single comment made every ninja that heard it blush. Somewhere there was Fugaku throwing a kunai at a picture of Naruto for the 1,000th time that day. It was 6 in the morning when Naruto felt something odd, and he immediately sent a dozen shadow clones where he felt something. In a matter of 10 minutes the memories returned. He went to Captain Heikate's tent and sounded the alarm. The entire camp was up in arms and ready when he saw his captain walk towards him and ask, "Is this a drill?" A serious look on Naruto's face was all the answer he needed. "How many and how far?" Naruto pointed at the direction. 400 sand ninja puppeteers and swords. "They will be here in 40 minutes. Captain Heikate asked what was the delay. Naruto simply told him they were busy walking across his traps. Mikoto and Koji did not look at all happy to receive that kind of wake-up call, but as their captain explained, it was within proper protocol. The camp was ready and Heikate had come up with a plan. They would use ninjutsu on the blades first. If they managed to get near they would switch to taijutsu and kinjutsu. For the puppets they'd do the same, except more ninjutsu heavy attacks. It would have worked, except that the swords attacked alongside the puppets. Naruto simply smiled, "Captain Heikate, mind if I take care of this and you and the rest enjoy the show?" Captain Heikate could not believe what he said. From anyone else it would be a clear overconfidence. He simply walked to a nearby wall and climbed on top. One of the jounin asked what he was doing. He simply saw Naruto walk towards the enemy group that was walking towards them. Captain Heikate merely replied, "Getting a good seat for the show." "What, you expect me to miss it?" Naruto simply stood there and in a puff of smoke 500 shadow clones appeared. He didn't even need to give orders. The clones rushed the now stunned enemy. The battle was fierce. Between collaboration jutsu and kinjutsu attacks there was little the enemy could do. Where there had been 400 proud sand ninja marching towards certain victory, no stood a place covered in blood, broken puppets, and broken blades. The jounin in camp could hardly believe it if they had not seen it themselves. Naruto had single-handedly killed 400 sand ninja, and he was not even breathing hard. Captain Heikate would have loved to see the face of the enemy camp leader. They too had tried to look at the battle from a safe distance. The scouts were sure that they would report their victory, but what they reported was something from their worst nightmares. A man dressed in black and red samurai armor had used ninjutsu and kinjutsu in the most horribly efficient way. He had alone killed their attack force. Lady Chiyo was not too happy to hear that some of the puppeteers were students she herself had taught. "Nice show, Naruto, but maybe next time you let us have some exercise." Captain Heikate simply joked. Naruto only smiled. "This was to test us. They will not make the same mistake again. So I hope some of you paid attention to the collaboration jutsu. They might be useful in the near future." Koji laughed at him. "Naruto, if you are done acting like a professor giving a lecture, come on, help me see what we can salvage of the enemy while we still can." Naruto, Mikoto, and Koji went to where the bodies of the enemy were. They saw that they would need more people. Some of the jounin and chunin volunteered. It was the least they could do after what they saw. It was later that night that they realized that they had hit a mother lode. Some of the enemy must have been idiots because they wrote their command structure, who was going where and when they would get reinforcements. But the thing that stuck him as even dumber was the location and layout of the enemy camp. Mikoto believed that it could be a trap, a simple case of misdirecting an enemy. Naruto, having sent a wolf specialized in scouting, believed otherwise. After the wolf told him what he was and what was there, he simply knew that that enemy was indeed that dumb or that confident in their troops. Captain Heikate decided to take 50 of their ninja, including both Uchiha and an Abiram. Shikaku Abiram was a very young jounin compared to the rest, but he was only there to act as backup for Mikoto and Naruto. In a single attack they sent the enemy retreating. The sheer lose in their numbers made it impossible to hold that camp. Lady Chiyo was the only jounin that survived, but she was wounded. Captain Heikate did not believe that it was over or that this was the only camp that the enemy had. It proved to be true. Those collaboration jutsu had saved 45 of the ninja that stayed behind, as the enemy also did a surprise attack. The force that had attacked lost 5 ninja when they did their surprise attack. They saw 105 dead bodies outside of the camp walls. Total, the enemy lost 900 ninja in 2 attacks, but they lost 10 out of the 100 ninja gathered in that camp. Tsukumo knew that they had other camps and that these battles were far from over. He had requested reinforcements, but they would be there in 2 weeks. These were going to be the longest 2 weeks that they had ever lived. Naruto knew that the sand ninja were very much into surprise attacks, but he needed to find a way to detect their approach quicker than he had done so far. His mind was also occupied by Mikoto, who was worrying him somewhat. She seemed to be really anxious about something, and when he asked she just blushed and walked away. But he had to do something about the detection range problem first. Though maybe if he took a soldier pill he could make 1000 shadow clones to maintain a detection perimeter around the camp. He would scare the living daylights out of the sensors in the camp. But what other choice did he have? He simply had no time to go to the land where the wolf contract lived and learn their sage arts. It would take no less than a year, and a year away from Mikoto and Koji would cause him to die out of sheer dread and worry. He needed to find a way. He felt that maybe using shadow clones, he could cut the time down to a month, but Tsukumo was not going to let one of his most trusted ninja off the war for an entire month. Mikoto would want to go with him, and Fenrir had made it quite clear, sage arts are to be kept absolutely secret. He as their summoner had earned the right to learn them, but no one had in over 2000 years, so they kept the training quite private, secret and on a personal level. But little did he know that he would have that month off, as the reinforcements were actually hurrying to their location after the Hokage learned what had happened. He felt that the camp needed a few more powerhouses to put down soon out of the war. The reinforcement came from Minato Namikaze and his red-haired lover, Kushina Uzumaki. Kushina had been granted leave from her duties at Anbu's assassination division. She had earned the moniker of the Flaming Red Death of Konoha. Naruto was meditating while keeping a small perimeter of shadow clones only 5 miles wide. He had to summon 500 shadow clones, and it did scare some of the ninja sensors in camp. Mikoto knew that Naruto was pushing himself, so she took a close guard position to where he was meditating. Unless you would like to call what Koji called a pair of lovebirds making an excuse to spend some quality time alone, you could almost swear that Nindog was laughing at his partner's comments. As one of the clones dispelled and he saw that their reinforcements were on their way. He got up and tried to walk towards the captain's tent. Try being the key word, he nearly fell over as he got back up. 20 shadow clones had dispelled from the south, east, and southwest. Hell, he needed to walk towards the location of Captain Heikate. Mikoto, I need you to tell Captain Heikate that we have a situation. We got 100 puppeteers coming from the east, 100 fan users coming from the southwest, and 100 swords coming from the south. The good news, we have reinforcements incoming from the north. But they will not make it in time before the battle starts. I would tell him himself, but I am having my remaining shadow clones do a paper bomb trap field in the direction the enemy are coming. When they dispel I will not be able to walk for at least 5 minutes, and we don't have time. Please, report to the captain and come and give me a hand. Mikoto understood and ran towards the location of the captain. He sure did not like the feeling of all the memories of so many clones at the same time. The sand ninja were in fact learning and becoming well aware of his camp's abilities. How much longer would this camp have to be present in these lands before they have some sort of leave? He often found himself thinking that it would be nice to share a few evenings alone with Mikoto so he could enjoy her company and not have to worry about an enemy group doing yet another surprise attack. But the chances seemed to be slim at best, and the way Fugaku kept sending proposal letters to Mikoto made him wonder a few things. What did Fugaku do all day? He was a captain of his own camp. For crying it out loud, where did he find the time to write those insults he called marriage proposals in the first place? He knew that the war was important to help defend the allies of Konoha, but deep inside he also knew that they could not afford to lose a camp. But that did not mean that he could not daydream of hearing the dreadful news that Fugaku was savagely maimed and died on the battlefield. Oh well, happy daydreams had to wait, duty calls after all. As he finally got over the dizziness, he walked over to the captain's tent. So your clone's done preparing the traps? Or the enemy are a few minutes away? Tsukumo looked at him and asked, field prepared, and they are a mile away from here. Tsukumo smiled and tried to make a joke, so are we going to enjoy the fireworks as our reinforcement arrive? Or are they going to be interrupted by a surprise attack? Every Jounin laughed at the antics of their captain and their unofficial second in command. Sure enough, as Minato and Kushina made their way to the captain's tent, a loud explosion was heard. You would think that they would at least try and look for traps. Naruto was heard saying as Minato walked where he and Tsukumo were looking at the enemy. They are in a hurry to try and eliminate the person they now call the armored red fiend of Konoha. The figure killing him is a top priority, so they changed tactics and are in quite the hurry. Tsukumo laughed and looked at Naruto, boy, they used to call me the White Fang, now it seems you sure are getting popular with those desert dwellers. Naruto looked as stoic as he could at the moment. If they want to hurry to get to their afterlife, I am sure going to send them on the Uchiha Express. Kushina came over to him to say hello, she did not remember ever having the pleasure of doing that. As she walked she felt something familiar about this Naruto Uchiha. But what was it that made him feel like she was just like him? No way that there was another Jinchuriki in this camp. As far as she knew, she was the only one in Konoha. Kurama was not happy either. He was practically screaming imposter as he saw Naruto through Kushina's senses. "Look bro, there is something off from that girl. You might trust your fellow ninja, but watch out for Kushina. I don't like the feeling she is giving off." Naruto told his Biju that there was nothing to worry about. He simply reminded her that there was no Jinchuriki placed on the front lines. If Konoha did have one, they were too valuable to be put at risk so early in the war. "You keep saying that, but I tell you, something about her makes me sick to my stomach. I just know that she has something that wants to kill me." As in for some celebration, the ninja watched as a group of enemies went up and exploded one after the other. The enemy lost 60 ninja before they realized what was happening and decided to finally do something smart. They used sand release jutsu to gather sand and compress it to be as hard as rocks, then they threw those rocks with wind jutsu. The effect was that the traps exploded and they could finally get to their enemy. The thing Naruto wondered was how dumb could a group be? If the enemy had so many traps ready, what would stop them from having even more traps closer to camp? The more they think that they had this camp figured, the more disappointed he became of his enemy, and he just had to prove them wrong all over again. As the group of enemy gathered together and rushed the camp, they heard a popping sound and then a hiss. Boy, this was not the way they had planned this out. They both looked up and saw some metal spheres go up, and then it exploded, raining kunai at the advancing enemy. Kunai grenades, a bunch of kunai tied together to a single paper bomb at the center. When this off, the paper bomb acted like a launcher as sent the kunai flying at the enemy. Naruto had killed 100 enemies yet again. The remaining clones appeared after dropping their camouflage and the remaining enemy attacked. They had their camp's help, but a single puppet was sent to kill him in the confusion of the battle. He launched Sembo at him, but missed and sent some at Kushina and Minato. The Sembo came out of Kushina as he was as mad as she could be. "You dare try and kill my lover? I will send you to hell in life, and then you will tell them that get ready for a big group. Because I am not leaving one of you sand bastard escape. You will all go to hell." Kushina had completely lost it and gone into beast mode. The red coat that covered her began to grow more tails until she had 3 waving tails. She ran towards a now really scared enemy group. Demon style. Hell descent jutsu. In a matter of seconds they were all attracted to a single spot and the ground turned black. The enemy saw as hundreds of red skeletal arms arose from the black ground and dragged on after the other underneath the ground, killing, screaming and begging for their lives. She was not done yet. "Now for you, pretender, there can be only one ruler of the 9th circle, and that is me. You will fight me in a duel in my mindscape. It is your Buju or mine. But there can only be one." Naruto was ready to fight, but Mikoto was worried for him. Kushina was her best friend, but she wasn't known for mercy when she was like that. She prayed that her Naruto would come out of this alive. She couldn't stand the idea that she would never be able to enjoy his company again. To her he was the most precious treasure, but had she been honest with her feelings, she would know that what she was feeling, and more strongly as time went on, was love. "Hey, sis, what is going on?" Naruto asked the snarling Biju. "It seems for some odd reason the Biju in that girl Kushina wants to pick a fight with me. I am not one to run from a fight, and I know neither are you. Touch her shoulder and I will take us to the place of our duel." When Naruto touched her shoulder, he felt the malice of the Biju, but it did not scare him. He and Kurama appeared in a field of burning trees, and they both understood this was made for him to take out some of his pent-up anger on something. For him to use his Jinchuriki to demand a fight just went to show how angry he was at sensing them. The image of Kushina and a very angry Kurama, the only difference he could tell physically was that he was a he and had black messy fur. The Kurama that he knew, the one that during his missions took to calling his big sis, was female. She always took great care of her red fur, silky as smooth. She might have tried to scare Naruto or even tested his bravery or if he had confidence in his strength, but as the war started he was happy with her Jinchuriki and was very much the loving big sister that she always wanted to be. "So you even go as far as to pretend to look like me?" She just gave him a nasty glare. "Mine versus yours. If one Biju is defeated, that Biju agrees to cease to exist. There can only be one." Naruto walked up to the angry Biju and told him in not a nice way, "Get on with it." But if that Uzumaki was thinking that she was going to have an easy fight, guess again. Naruto activated his Magenkyu Sharingan. "She interferes in the fight and I will stop her. She tries to help you and I will stop her. You want to fight my big sis, then it better be on even terms or else." The black Kurama liked the way this young man did not go around the bushes. He was as direct as he was, and without even saying start he attacked the red Kurama. Both Jinchuriki walked to a nearby place where they could see the fight and not be in the way. "Look, I know who you are. Mikoto would not stop talking about you, but how about we try to remain civil? I don't like this any more than you do." Kushina tried to have a chat with Naruto. He looked at her and replied, "My grandfather left an imprint of his mind to teach and train me." His opinion was that most Uzumaki were very much like the Senju. He only trusted 2 Uzumaki out of the entire clan. his wife and sister-in-law. That tell you the warm and friendly opinion he gave me about it. Makoto always wondered why you avoided me and the Senju. Guess it was to be expected. You can turn off your taijutsu. I am not going to get in the way of Kurama and his fun. You might not like my clan, but we are an honorable sword. Once we promise something we always keep it. I promise not to interfere with the duel or the outcome, Dadabane. Naruto looked at her trying to believe her, so he did turn it off, but could reactivate it in a second. The fight was your standard brawl. Bites, swipes, kicks, snarls, and more dirty tricks from the black Kurama than Naruto and the red Kurama could care for. The black Biju was brutal and attacks in any way he could. He even took some of the branches of the trees and tried to use them as weapons. The red Kurama was doing her best to win this fight, but you would sooner expect Jiraiya to jump naked into the men's hot spring, declaring himself gay that are fighting dirty during an honorable duel. To Naruto the fight was not going so well, the sheer brutality of that black Kurama was something. He was pushing his big sis, and the strain was showing. The last second he threw dirt in her face blinding her, and before she could even react, he tried to use the beast ball attack. But he did not count on her here the attack power up, and he missed only to have the very attack redirected by one of her tails which set it right back at him. The attack hit him on his head, knocking him out. She just walked over to him and sat down. Though I said it was to the death, why didn't you finish me off? The red Kurama was taking care of her fur when she noticed him awake and asking a dumb question. We both know that we can't be killed, so stop with the pretending already. My bro is honorable, what did expect that I would be any less? The black Kurama stopped pretending. So he treats you right. Doesn't just use you for your power. The red Kurama gave him a big smile. My bro is as sweet as they come, and that blonde bro of mine would never even ask for it, he waits for me to offer my knowledge or power. The black Kurama had to admit that was nicer than any of his past Jinchuriki. You win, I will give you mine entire chakra, use it and keep those precious to you safe. Kurama could swear that she heard the black Kurama snicker was it was absorbed into her. Well Naruto, I am twice as strong as before. Bro, why are you laughing like that? Naruto simply pointed at her fur and she immediately noticed something was definitely wrong. Wait a minute, it looked like what the hell, my fur is all a mess now. It is going to take a couples of weeks to clean it and get it decent again. Hey Uzumaki. Did he ever hear about taking a bath? The smell could kill of a skunk. Kushina was not able to answer for a few moments. Why you ask? Because she was laughing too hard. After she was done and could answer, she just mentioned to her did she see any place where he could take a bath in. Now Kurama really appreciated her bro making a full apartment for her behind the sealed gates. When they both left, the mind of Kushina had hit him hard. The extra instant increase of chakra caused him severe pain as his chakra pathways expanded and Kurama was busy doing her best to heal him. But not quickly enough. Naruto collapsed on the ground and was then that the entire camp saw a very frantic, worried, and angry Makoto screaming for medics. The medics came and took him to the field treatment tent. When they told her that she needed to wait outside, she just did not listen and went to wait by the available place. She waited till the doctor finished healing him and was practically praying and almost crying all the time she was waiting. Kushina did not know what to do or why would she react his way. It was almost as if the two were lovers. Strange, wasn't he supposed to be her adopted brother? Well, Naruto managed to heal from the stress caused by his chakra pathways expanding. He was just fine by the time the medics release him, except for several problems. First, he was going to need new clothes. He apparently grew a few inches and his clothes did not quite fit right, but to his surprise Makoto was actually pretty good with a sewing needle. She fixed his clothes and saved him a good amount of money. The second problem came as she started to fix his shirts and asked him to give him the ones he was wearing. She managed to repair the others, just those needed fixing. But when he removed his clothes, she saw his chest, his muscles, his abs, his powerful strong legs, and something that made her blush. Because of the growth he had gone through, the boxers he was wearing now looked like brief and his package became quite noticeable. Makoto was torn between telling him to cover up with a blanket and simply jumping him and tossing caution in the wind. A few kunoichi came to the tent to see if Makoto needed some help, and when they saw Naruto like that, they always left with either saying something about Makoto being lucky or calling him a hunk. Kurama was quiet and quite busy. Her fur really was a mess of knots and the smell was giving her a hard time. She ended up taking a bath several times before the smell finally disappeared. But the knots, did that guy ever hear of a comb? Her chakra had doubled and it was pretty hard to keep it under control and do delicate things like straighten her fur, especially in those hard to reach places. She was tempted in asking Naruto to help her with the fur on her back, but she remembered that there was this annoying barrier that kept that from happening. She ended up using some clones to take care of it. The last problem had been from the rest of the camp. They kept making comments that he and Makoto should do the decent thing and get married already. They said that they behave like a couple of newlyweds, that they should get the ceremony done and over with. Tsukumo put an end to that teasing by saying that he was not about to send two of his most valuable troops so that they get married, the time of getting there, the ceremony and then the honeymoon. He told them this camp would be either captured or dead by the time they got back. Makoto was always smiles when she was near him, and the look she would give to other kunoichi, who tried to flirt with the new and improved Naruto, as they had a habit of calling him, was of poor murder. Her attitude towards them was clear as day, she was basically saying he is mine, and if you try and take him I will make you see hell. Koji and his partner often joked with each other about how did Makoto go from kindly family member to jealous lover in a matter of days. A jounin that heard that decided to put in his opinion and told him, sometimes in the heat of battle relationships can either grow stronger or break up. We could die any moment, so the time with a loved one becomes that more precious. Koji simply did not understand why he would know. The jounin simply told him that the head kunoichi healer in camp was in fact his wife. They became involved and eventually married before the end of the Second World War. Koji felt that maybe he should try and find himself a mate. That was when the formerly mentioned healer went to look for her husband and found him chatting with the Inyazuka and his nindog. You need to simply make yourself available. Trust me, when a woman wants a mate she will be the one finding you. All the men and the nindog looked at her, she was right, but it was sure a hard thing to hear. Tsukumo was worried about Naruto as well. The extra chakra would have messed his control, and controlling your chakra was vital in combat situations like they were now. Combat against the camp had happened less and less, it seems Suna was finally getting the message. Mess with this camp and you will have to expand your cemetery. The newly appointed Kazekage was even doing secret negotiations with the Hokage to declare peace between them and even enter a possible alliance to deal with Iwa. Lady Chiyo was a big promoter of this. She did not want to ever be in combat against that armored fiend from Konoha for as long as she lived. After 2 years of combat and the council and Suna seeing that their ninja ranks were being decimated by the war, they finally saw the wisdom in what Lady Chiyo of Water and the new Kazekage had been trying to get them to see for those 2 years. Makoto, Koji, and Naruto made full jounin, but also did several others. They finally would have a month's leave to see their family, and Naruto told Captain Heike that he was doing special training to get ready for the Iwa offensive. Minato and Naruto became the best of friends, and Kushina joked that when were they going to see the two finally marry and give them some little godchildren to spoil. Kushina took the loss of her Biju as many would, a blessing. She did not have to deal with the furball's constant bloodlust. Her relationship, health, and outlook in life improved 100%. The Hokage was happy to see that most of the troops had made it back, but still held memorial services to those that had died. He wrote letters to the families that lost members, and he would always say that they were by far the hardest letters he ever had to write. How do you tell a wife in a letter that she would never see her husband or that her child will have to grow without a father? The worst had been where he had to send the children of couples that both died in the war. The life of a war orphan was never easy, and seldom was it a happy one. Kagami welcomed both Naruto and Makoto with open arms and a smile, but that smile ended when he met with the one-eyed heavily scarred face of Fugaku glaring at them. Kagami was not feeling an ounce of pity for him. You try and hog all the glory in a war, and you will pay for it. Naruto talked at night with the wolf boss Fenrir. He too told him that the only way to improve enough to be able to use the extra chakra was for him to go to the wolf, summon territory and train with the elders. He was told that the place had a nice village, but the problem was that time was different there, and in Konoha, in the month he trained there he would eventually end up the same age as Makoto. He would have to explain why he had gone from a late teenager to a mid-20s adult. He simply did not pay much mind to that. Makoto was not that superficial, and Kagami would trust him. Naruto was then summoned to the wolf summon territory, and he was greeted by Fenrir's own daughter. They took a time to get to know each other and became good friends by the time they arrived at the village. He was supposed to train his chakra control with the wolf elders, but instead he was told by the elders that he was going to do something no one has done in thousands of years. He was sent to the wolf sages to learn the ancient and noble art of Senjutsu and become a wolf sage. The elders tried to scare him and told him that it was an extremely heavy training regiment, to which he laughed. In a puff of smoke 1,000 shadow clones were also laughing. He pointed at the clones and told the elders, with this group I will finish the training. The wolf elders looked surprised, but in the end that would have to believe it. Naruto was not sure what to expect when he reached the village, but this was not it. This place looks like a regular village. Houses, businesses, hospital, an academy and even some people that look like regular humans. Well, if you discount that most people were wearing sandals and had no gloves, or the fact that they looked almost human. They almost came with their long hair, ears, and tails. He asked one of the people what it all looked so different. He was told it was a simple transformation and it made life in the village a lot more easier. He understood it, but it still shocked him. He had arrived at night and they had not posted any guards since they knew he was coming. When he arrived to a massive cave opening, the person escorting him simply told him that it was the place the old sages preferred to live at. The transformation was not very popular with them. He went into the cavern and saw why. The halls were massive, and the way to get to everything require a lot of physical agility and strength. Little did he know that it was all planned this way. His training would require him to master his senses and grow in ways he never expected. As the hall he was told to walk down came to a massive cave, it was clear that something was waiting for him, but it was dark. All he could hear was some heavy breathing. Since he could not use his eyes, he closed them and put both hands over his ears. His hearing improved a little but felt ridiculous until he remembered his chakra. He lowered his hands and concentrated on using chakra on in his ears. Immediately he heard what could not be mistaken. 3 faint whispers from 3 elderly lady wolves was heard. "Well, the student at the very least is not completely dumb," said one on the right. "He was able to figure out he could not see, not bad for a pup," said the one in the middle. "But he hasn't figured out if he used chakra in his eyes, he would actually be able to see us," said the final voice on his left, clearly making fun of him. He looked in that direction and smiled. "Or maybe he is just trying to respect your privacy while you are busy taking care of your paws," Naruto replied. This came as a shock to that wolf. How did he know that she was taking care of her paws? "Your tongue. I can hear it too." Naruto did not wait to be asked. The middle wolf hit a stone, sending a spark in the air, making a small pile of wood catch on fire. "At the very least he will be a lot of fun. We don't usually have much in the way of visitors. I am Kuna, my sisters are Kima on your right, and the one that was grooming her paws is Kaya, my little sister. Glad to meet you, Naruto-cha. Be most welcome to your least favorite training time, I am sure." Naruto looked at her and simply had a look of confusion. Kima began to explain, "We 3 have devoted our entire lives to the training and practice of being sages. We chose to abandon village life and even having a family to do this. The training will be some of the harshest you had. Most of our aspiring students end up quitting halfway and complain constantly. So that is why my sister may think you will not enjoy your training with us. Be at ease and sit down. After you rest a little bit you will be told what you will have to do." Naruto did sit down in a meditation stance and told them he was just fine. "First of you will not be allowed to wear any clothes except underwear. We respect some sense of modesty after all. The reason will be explained by Kuna as soon as you are done changing." Naruto did not question it, there must be a good reason. He took all his clothes except his underwear, but at the sight of his muscles, Kaya was amazed. "So you done a decent amount of training, good," Kaya told him. "The reason why you will not wear more is because we expect you to use all your senses to train. To be a wolf sage means to train your senses to such that losing one will mean very little to you. To be in perfect unity with your senses is the basis of the wolf senjutsu teachings. If you master our teachings you will be able to see in total darkness, hear miles away and tell the smell of the smallest flower from miles away. You will be able to see with nothing more than your feeling you will get from your sense of touch without touching anything at all. Strength will be trained naturally because everything in this cave weighs several hundred times normal, and agility will be trained because you will be asked to use the entire cave complex and not all of it is easy to reach. It would take at least 10 years for you to learn everything, but to have our mastery, it would take you at least 60 years of constant training. Do you have any questions?" Kuna was done talking and asked. "Just where am I supposed to sleep? And where is the bathroom? How do we get our food?" Naruto asked. Kia began to laugh. "The place where you are sitting is your bed, your bathroom you go outside, and food there is plenty of game to hunt in a nearby forest, also a small river where fish are plenty, but be warned those fish is good size for use, so you can imagine how big they are for you." Naruto understood, he had to use his senses for everything here. "Can I use shadow clones?" Kima answered, "That one, only for practice, you must learn to do it yourself first. For everything else no clones. We don't waste chakra on things we should be able to do alone." Naruto understood that these sages were going to be very strict. Everything had a purpose and he would need to learn fast and efficiently. He did not have 10 years and being away from Mikoto for a decade would drive him insane with worry. How was he to know that Mikoto felt exactly the same? Her life would also be difficult as he too tried to train her Jujutsu and tried at the same time to stay away from the constant pest she came to hate so much, a pest named Fugaku. Not the name he would call him the putrid tick of Konoha. He was a wretched creature that was very unpleasant to her and was very hard to get rid of. The 3 sages were surprised to see that the physical requirements of the training were nothing to him. The hunting and living came to him as natural as breathing. His big sis did tell him many things about proper fox behavior and hunting techniques. Kia, much to the discomfort of her sisters, even made a bad joke about him. She told her 2 sisters that if she was a lot younger she would want to pick him up for herself. She told them she was just a delight to the senses. Her sister Kima told her to concentrate on her teaching, and Kuna told her to stop acting like a teenager in heat. Life in the lonely cave was sure becoming more and more interesting. The one technique that seemed to be a true gift from the heavens had been the shadow clone. He did as he was told. As soon as he was able to pass one test, he made 1,000 shadow clones to master it. The three sages could hardly believe it. At the rate he was going to have more mastery of the sage arts than then in 10 years. But when life is only focused on learning, training and living, time tended to go a lot faster. The 10 years had changed Naruto a lot. He looked so much like his grandfather. His muscles and height were impressive. New underwear was brought to him every 2 years by the village ninja. One of the Anbu made a surprise statement as she left that the human was quite the hunk, maybe she needed to try and getting him for herself. The three sages and Naruto heard her from a few hundred feet away. Boy, that girl sure is going to be sad. You haven't told anyone about your mate, have you, pup? Kima asked him. He simply used a Kaiten jutsu to finish cooking his boar. No, why should I? I came to train, not to fool around. Guna just agreed with a nod, something my little sister is still having trouble learning, it seems. Both Kima and Kuna began to laugh. Kia was too busy sulking. So what if she liked to play sometimes? She was still quite frisky for her age. Kia just enjoyed the company of some men. What was wrong with that? She took all necessary precautions after all. 10 years and came, and the training could not progress anymore. The villagers looked at him get out of the cave, a changed man. They were going to miss their jokes about the three sages being lonely without him around. The sages did not comment because that was true. Naruto had made their lives seem more peaceful, fun, and comfortable. Some of the kids, now teenagers, joked that Naruto should be called the village's fourth sage. Fenrir was told of his progress, and he was proud of the clan summoner. Many wolves consider him a fellow villager. Fenrir knew that he needed to provide new clothes, and so he secretly asked Mikoto to prepare some. What she sent was a perfect copy of what Madara Uchiha had worn last as a ninja of Konoha. The only difference was the sizes. As Naruto dressed himself and thanked the sages for their training and hospitality, they of course could hear him from the center of the village. The three sister had smiled at his kind gesture. It is time to go, Naruto. I wonder how your mate will find the new you, said Fenrir as he took Naruto back to Konoha. As Naruto appeared, he was greeted by a shorter Mikoto. He looked surprised. She was not shorter, she told him, seeing his look, he was just taller. Without waiting for his approval, she hugged him. I sure missed you, Naruto. You really must tell me what you have done since you've been away this entire month. That statement made Fenrir disappear laughing as he saw the Wolf Clan summoner on the ground having fainted. I guess he forgot to tell him that time was different on their village than anywhere he could imagined. Mikoto and Kagami took Naruto to bed, and she did the most scandalous thing she ever had done. She removed all of his clothes and hers as well and climbed into bed with him. When Naruto wakes up, the look on his face will be priceless, Mikoto believed as she fell asleep in his arms. Fugaku had come to look for Mikoto for the 1,000th time. He found her sleeping with Naruto in the same bed. The look on his face could not help to hide the sheer rage he was feeling. Brother, my eye, they look like a couple of newlyweds. Fugaku was thinking as he ran away to his home. Naruto was waking up from the most comfortable sleep he ever had. When he saw the sleeping form of Mikoto holding him, he simply smiled. Mikoto, it's time to wake up, my sweet. He gently touched her shoulder. Oh come on, Naruto, 5 more minutes. Naruto simply grinned at the comment. Well, he was not going to be able to move with her holding him like she was. He simply leaned into her so he could whisper something to her before he got ready to go back to sleep. What he whispered, you ask? Well, it was simply, love you, Mikoto, see you when you wake up. Naruto and Mikoto were both awakened near noon by a rather startled Kagami. He went to check on Naruto. Naruto was not a heavy sleeper as far as he remembered. What the man found made him run to find his wife to show her. The two looked like a couple that'd been married for years. It was clear that they were completely comfortable in each other's arms. To Kagami's astonishment, his wife simply said to him that it was about time. She was going to let them to do that already had they waited anymore. Kagami could hardly believe what he was hearing. It was as if his wife had been planning this all along. Tell me, my beloved, since when did you start for them to get together? His wife merely smiled, a smile that kept him from saying anything. Oh, since Naruto dealt with the bullies that were after Mikoto. You know what they say, for great thing planning and a lot of patience is always needed. He hugged his wife and simple commented since when his wife decided to become such a strategist. She laughed and kissed him. For her daughter's happiness, no sacrifice or work would be spared. Hey, you two, don't forget to get Naruto to the hospital. The Hokage wants his to have a complete physical evaluation. Orochimaru also wants to meet Naruto, something about a little hobby they share. Kagami was no longer surprised as Mikoto took charge and simply replied she would make sure of it. Mikoto smiled, a smile that could have been a precious treasure for Naruto. She had after a long time, and in the middle of a war, she found what she was always looking for. A man that she would be proud to call her love. He got dressed first, not wanting to miss a single second of seeing Mikoto getting dressed in what looked like matching gear. He would like to wake up like this from now on, but that was a decision for her to make. He still wondered if she felt the same as he did for her. If this had been an attempt of her to tease him, it would be something he would need to go out and find an enemy camp which he could blow into oblivion. Killing enemies or bandits was his favorite way to get over a depressing moment after all. Mikoto felt the look from Naruto and was dressing rather slowly. This had been the best night in her life. She had never felt so comfortable, safe, and loved in her life. The only worry was what Kushina would say about it when she told her what she did. Her best friend Kushina was a born prankster, but even she did not do something like this. What started as a prank became something else. It became a realization. She truly loved Naruto, and the way he looked, no one would question them being together. After hearing what he had whispered after his attempt at waking her up, she knew what she always wanted was within reach. He loved her, and she most certainly loved him. But there was one part that she did not look forward to. The way Fugaku woke up next morning was as if the most terrible thing had happened. The stoic face he always wore was not present. All that his family could say is that he either was really angry or he was remembering eating something really sour. Mikoto and Naruto walked towards the hospital, arms locked. The way people looked at them was clear. This was the way a wife accompanies her husband for a checkup. Kushina was there also for a checkup. She had been worried that she might miss her period if what happened with Minato turned to be fruitful. She saw her friend's smiling face and began to think that she was not the only one that got lucky the night before. Naruto walked into the doctor's office and Mikoto waited outside. Kushina began to interrogate her about how far had she gotten with him. How was her night? Did she come in to check if she would have a little bundle in a few months? After all that, she was blushing, not believing what her friend was asking. The answers are, nothing happened, my night was simply wonderful, and not yet, first we need to marry. Kushina could not believe that nothing happened. Mikoto hit her on the shoulder and told her that Naruto respected her too much to try and take that step without her expressed approval. It's nice to be respected, isn't it, Mikoto? Naruto was truly a gentleman, and that was one of the reasons she first fell in love with him. Mikoto simply told Kushina that she better be ready for her wedding. At the pace she and Minato were going, Mikoto was not sure what would end first, her being single or the war. The doctor could hardly believe it. The type of growth they were seeing in a person's chakra pathways was unheard of. His chakra capacity had tripled and there was no obvious negative signs. The only thing that they could not understand is why was the seal of a Jinchuriki showing. It usually only appeared when chakra was being used. Then it hit them, Naruto was absorbing some of their chakra through their touching while they did these scans. It must be because his chakra reserves were not finished and trying to come to full capacity. After his muscle growth, chakra pathways expansion and hardening of his bones, it would be strange that his body would not have signs of some chakra usage. The doctor walked outside with Naruto and told Mikoto that he had some mild case of chakra exhaustion. He should have some rest, fruits and vegetables with plenty of fluids, and he would be fine in a couple of hours. Mikoto simply could not understand why the doctor was telling her that. The adult Inuzuka doctor told her, "You are his mate, why wouldn't I tell you this?" She left seeing the blush appear on the young woman's face and laughed. Tsume Inuzuka did not like to be left out of the action, but the village needed every available doctor, and she was certified as one. Mikoto and Kushina left to do things that only ladies could do alone, buying a few essential items, some new clothes, and such. Naruto took the chance to go towards the research complex that Orochimaru had built. He never understood why make his complex look like a rundown brothel. Orochimaru simply told him that they would never expect to find his lab in a place like this. "So Orochi, how is the growth on the last samples?" Naruto asked as Orochimaru was checking the latest reports. "Pretty good, the cloning techniques and equipment are ready for full body cloning, but we now need to specialize to be able to grow individual organs. How are you eyes feeling, any negative effects yet?" Naruto smiled and told him that he was the exception to the norm. "So how did your training with the slugs go?" Orochimaru threw something at Naruto which he caught it. "Just fine, thanks. If you have a chance, try that next time you see an enemy." He looked at the flask. "What is this? How strong is it?" Orochimaru simply laughed. "Hallucinogen, one drop will make any person think they are in nirvana. A distracted enemy could mean some more research materials for our little pet project. Can't have Tsunade be the only one that supplies us with samples." Naruto took the flask with safety stored. Orochimaru always had the most interesting things for him to test out. Naruto knew that keeping ahead of the other villages could mean the means to win the war. Orochimaru always considered the blonde as a good friend and great source of ideas. How could someone who was so friendly could come up with such horrible ideas was always a thing he wondered. Well, he did it to protect the village, so he was not going to complain. He also kept him from ever getting bored. Fugaku was looking for the thing that was making his life a living hell. In this case, Naruto Uchiha was something he needed to get rid of and fast. He had decided to follow Mikoto and Kushina to see where they were going. To see the two walk into a lingerie store and worst, hearing them talk was what set him on killing Naruto sooner rather than later. To be able to speak if he would like her in something like that, it meant that she and the bastard had advanced more than Fugaku felt was approved. Fugaku did not approve at the very least. How do I find that pest? Where could he be? Fugaku was so mad that he did not see Naruto walking right next to where he was sitting on the roof of a coffee shop. Naruto decided to go get a nice cup of coffee at a nearby shop. He saw Fugaku fuming mad, but it was nothing to do with him or so he believed. Coffee black, with 2 sugars right. The shop owner held a cup to Naruto. That was the bad thing about going to a shop and never changing his order. The coffee shop owner knew him too well. He paid for the cup and took a nice long smell of it. "Hey, you got some new type of coffee beans, didn't you?" The shop owner was amazed. "Sure did, that stuff roasts a lot easier and has a strong creamy texture. Tell me how you like it." Naruto took a sip. "Well, this is bad." The shop owner was frowning at Naruto. "If this coffee tastes this good I won't have any left for me." The entire shop began to laugh. Fugaku nearly fell from the roof after he heard all that. He missed a perfect chance to poison his coffee. Well, the idiot would die if not today soon. He considered sending information on where he was going to be to the enemy. Come to think of it, it was not such a bad idea. An anonymous tip would do the trick and the pest would be dead for sure. He would move in to console and give emotional support to the depressed Mikoto. Yes, this plan was not so bad after all. From looking like grumpy and in a foul mood, he went to laughing like a maniac. Too bad for him, Naruto heard every single word. I guess being a wolf sage had some advantages. Naruto had found that his life with his family would become even more complicated. His relationship with Mikoto was changing in a not so unpleasant direction. But it was complicated, especially since there were some idiots screaming that their relationship should not be allowed. Some even tried to tell the Hokage to intervene since it was basically incest. He put these arguments to rest really quickly when he mentioned that the entire Uchiha clan and some of the other noble clans had the practice of marrying distant relatives. Naruto was adopted by Kagami and was indeed a distant relative. This news was no surprise to Naruto. The imprint of his grandfather and what Kurama told him left no doubt that he was not the brother to Mikoto. Never mind the fact that he was from another dimension altogether. Mikoto simply looked at it this way: who she chose to sleep with, marry and have him be the father of her children was her business, and everyone who did not agree could take a nose dive into the nearest active volcano for all she cared. She woke up in Naruto's bed, and as far as she was concerned it was their room and their bed. Fugaku, being the idiot that he was, did in fact send information about the whereabouts of Naruto and his potential mission scheduled to Iwa. Suna was now an ally against a common foe. The war was coming quickly to an end. He used some of his influence on a council member to assign Naruto a lone scouting mission towards the border that was nearest to their now enemy nation. This was all a trap, of course. Fugaku lied through his teeth to the enemy cage and told him that Naruto was carrying sensitive information to meet with potential traitors in his council. The paranoid Cage sent a pair of Anbu squads to get that information and tortured the Konoha ninja into revealing who the traitors were. Mikoto was not at all happy about having her private time with Naruto cut short. She stormed into the Hokage's office and demanded with kunai in hand that she be allowed to go with Naruto on that scouting mission. The Anbu who were guarding were very loyal, but not stupid. The way Mikoto looked was beyond pissed, and if they did anything to try and stop her there would be a bunch of dead Anbu. Not one moved an inch. Mikoto, how about we do something instead? You can act as Naruto's backup should he need it. Let's have a little more faith in your loved one. This war is still going, and he will do just fine. Mikoto looked at the Hokage like he was right. She did leave, but not without throwing her kunai at a nearby wall. The kunai missed the face mask of an Anbu by mere inches. The Anbu did the only thing he could do in the situation. She simply fainted. Well, Shino Haruno was not much into combat, spy on the enemy sure, but not combat. It would ruin her hair after all. Naruto was fully dressed and even decided to listen to his now official lover words of advice. He had summoned Fenrir's own daughter to keep him company in the mission. They both jumped from tree branch to tree branch until they arrived at a place where they had to land and start walking. A few miles in the Iwa territory, the thing that Naruto had expected happened. 8 Iwa Anbu jumped out from hiding. They demanded that he surrendered all the information he was carrying and answer their questions. When he told them he had none, they did not believe him. Naruto quickly told them that they should tell him all the future battle plans of Iwa against Konoha. If they did, he would allow them to live alive. They reacted the only way you would expect. They attacked him. 25 minutes, and with a teamwork that would put the Inyazuka fighting techniques to shame, only 2 Anbu were left standing. This was bad. How could they been so badly beaten, they wondered. The potential invasion was going to fail in a couple of weeks, so they whispered. Naruto, true to his word, simply told the frightened Anbu to go ahead and leave. The 2 could hardly believe their ears. They asked, and he simply repeated his statement with an added "before I change my mind" comment. They did not need to replay. They both left as if the devil was hot on their heels. Makoto was tired on waiting for Naruto to call for backup and decided to meet him halfway towards his location. She saw him without his summons. "Well, I guess the mission was not such trouble at all," she told him as she hugged him. "No, there was trouble. Two squad of enemy Anbu kind of trouble. Man, I really should thank Fugaku, that is the most fun I had fighting our enemy in a while." Makoto looked at his smiling face. "What does Fugaku have anything to do with it?" she asked, instinctively activating her Taijutsu. "Well, when I was having a nice cup of coffee, you should really try it. It was great coffee." When he made a few comments about missing a chance to poison my coffee and giving a few secrets about me to the enemy. Makoto could hardly believe what she heard, but she could tell it was all true. Fugaku had given info the enemy so they would kill Naruto. Naruto simply smiled. "It happened and I could not get any evidence proving the treason. But even worse, I found out that Iwa plans an invasion to start in a couple of weeks from now. Guess they want to bring the fight closer to us. So in a way Fugaku's stupidity ended up helping us." Makoto wanted to show the idiot what happens to someone who messed with her lover. Naruto told her they need to hurry and meet with the Hokage to report this information. Makoto and Naruto both landed on the office of the Hokage, surprising him somewhat. I mean, they did jump in through an open window after all. Naruto immediately told the Hokage everything leading to the mission and how he knew the enemy would be there. He chanced the rank of the mission from A to SS. The man even sent a nice thank you to Fugaku in his quick thinking and tricking the enemy. Naruto appeared behind a very shocked and angry Fugaku, only to hear him say, "Fugaku, thanks a lot, that was a really fun fight. If could arrange some more for me, it would really be nice of you. Bye." Naruto left smiling, and Fugaku was cussing up a storm. Did he have to do everything himself? Useless Iwa ninja can't even kill something like that. He simply came to the conclusion that the touch of an elite Uchiha was needed to get rid of the pest. He returned to the house that he had grown up in and walked towards Kagami. He simply told him that thanks to the mission reward he had more than enough money to buy a home nearby. Before his adoptive mother could say anything, he simply smiled. "Well, at the very least Makoto and me won't keep you from sleeping. You know how lovers can get. The first part is complete, now I need a good enough of a ring. I guess a major reward after from my next deployment. Please keep it a secret, but I will need help picking a good enough engagement ring. So many things to plan and so little time." He left a pair of Uchiha smiling. Makoto was marrying quite the character. But it did not surprise him. People often act a little crazy when they're in love. The next deployment came and it was no surprise, it was a camp in Fire Country. They had set a perimeter of camps to protect Konoha. The invasion was only a couple of days away. Danzo, being the man that he was, simply told the Hokage that it could all be misinformation on the enemy's part. Jiraiya's spy network said that it was accurate. Makoto, Naruto, Kushina, Minato and Fugaku would all serve in the main camp. They were the last line of defense. Kushina had taken to train very hard after she was no longer a Jinchuriki. Fugaku looked like he constantly had something sour in his mouth. Minato took to seeing Naruto practice his most destructive techniques. He even saw him practice his Biju mode and Sage mode. The attack that really impressed him was the Beast Tail Ball attack. Being a genius that he was, he had finished the seals for the Flight of the Thunder God technique. He was working to think of a way to manipulate chakra into a weapon. When he saw his friend use that attack, it came to him the form. He spent hours without any sleep. It was incredible he finally finished it at the time where their deployment orders arrived. A big ball of constantly spinning chakra. What to call it? He did not want to steal the name from his friend's technique and naming it after him. Well, Naruto was famous enough already, no need to make him more of a target. Rasengan, that would be a nice name. Now to try and find a way to use it with elemental chakra, how would it change? Kushina was not happy. Nope, she was not happy at all. Minato was spending trying to invent new jutsu and techniques rather than with her. The fact that Makoto was smiling more and more did not make it easy for her to hide the fact that living with Naruto in their new home was agreeing with her. He had wanted to wait till he had at least proposed to her, but she would have none of that. Time apart was time wasted and she did not want to waste any more time apart. She told Kushina that and at that moment looked at her eyes. There was this twinkle in her eyes that made her realize that she was not wasting time. "So how was he?" Kushina asked her friend. She did the only thing appropriate, blushed and punched her playfully on her shoulder. "Hey, I don't ask you about what you do with Minato. You keep what happens in the bedroom private, so let me do the same." Makoto blushing more and more as she remembered what did happen in that bedroom. Thank God for the Uzumaki sealing theories that Kushina had taught her. The silent seal was a godsend. Her neighbors would have been complaining non-stop otherwise. She had to place one on their tents when she got to the camp. "So really, come on, how was he?" Makoto knew that Kushina would not stop asking until she got an answer. Magnificent doesn't describe it. "I could hardly move my legs the first time, and as it happens more and more, I know that I can't live without him. I heard that lovemaking can get dull after a while. But he keeps getting better and better. If he gets any better I will not want to let him leave the bed. Kushina was now blushing. What I asking how is he living with you? I do respect some of your privacy you know. Mikoto could hardly believe she misunderstood the question. With such a wonderful lover how could she not remember that first? Naruto was trying to train, trying being the word. He was having a hard time with the sneezing fit that just started out of nowhere. His ears felt like they would catch fire. One of his summons joked about it and told him that maybe someone was talking about him. Yugaku had developed the very nasty habit Jiraiya was so well known for. But the difference he was not peeping at the hot spring. No, he was looking at the bedroom of Mikoto and the pest. The things they had done, and so often it should be a crime. He should be the only one to do that with Mikoto. His plan was coming together at long last. He managed to manipulate the council to be placed in the same camp as the pest. The time was perfect. He had copied a few Iwa jutsu in his last deployment. Once he was on the field he would use one on the pest, it would look like the enemy killed him. This was going to be perfect. If you want anything done well you had better do it yourself. This was the lesson he learned after his last failure. As the group headed towards the camp the only question that remained who would be in charge of the camp. Minato, Kushina and Mikoto believed it would be Naruto. He was well educated, prepared, and was a sage. Fugaku of course was dreaming on what humiliating tasks he would assign the pest when he took command of the camp. Who else would be in charge of the camp except an Uchiha elite like he was? There was no one else worthy in his mind. We can dream many things and hope for even more. But not all dreams come true. As he saw a contingent of Anbu welcome the group they all stood in attention as the lead called out. It will be an honor to serve under you Captain Uchiha. Fugaku of course believed he was talking to him. I sure under my leadership we will succeed. The Anbu was looking at him like he had gone mental. Sir, I am sure your division will be successful, but we were instructed to welcome Captain Naruto Uchiha. This made Fugaku hate Naruto even more even as he once believed that was not possible. A shout from a Jounin was heard, Yosh, under the youthful leadership of the wolf sage. We will show the enemy the power of our youthful will of fire. Naruto simply asked the lead Anbu who was the nutcase. He simply told him that it was no other than the newly promoted Might guy. They both looked at each other and he simply asked, this is going to be a long deployment with him here. The Anbu simply replied, ain't that the truth? His deployment had just started and Fugaku was praying, wishing if not full out desiring an enemy attack. The pest took the woman that would allow him to become the head of their clan and then allow him to kill the Hokage so he would rule Konoha. From there he would use Konoha to take over the entire world. But it was all stopped by one Naruto Uchiha. His relationship sent a long-term global conquest plot down the proverbial toilet. The pest needs to die so that he could rise to his true position as ruler of the world. But the enemy was taking far too long to get here. For all he knew Mikoto was already pregnant with their first child, he also prayed to God that was not the case. Mikoto did not even ask, she moved all her things to the captain's tent and Naruto had no reason to say anything about her decision. Inside he was jumping for joy, well except Kurama. For once she was thinking that without her brother's mate around she could do something she hadn't been able to do. The thing she longed for was of course sleep. Her brother and her mate were quite loud during their mating. But those hopes went up in smoke when she saw her brother's mate move in his tent. Naruto told her to relax, they had to be constantly ready for combat. There was little chance of them having the chance to be with her. She simply told him to look at her sleepwear and for him to tell her that again. Lingerie, silky provocative lingerie. On the one side he would have a very pleasant evening, on the other his sister would get very little sleep and her anger would only grow. He silently sent a prayer to the heaven, telling Kami to have mercy of the poor stupid enemy ninja. Naruto was sure of several things by the next morning. He was sure that he loved Mikoto with every fiber of his being. He was sure that her mere presence made his life seem worth any risk. He was sure that she loved him too. He was sure that after this war he was going to beg, plead, and crawl on his knees if he had to, but he was going to ask her to marry him. He was sure Fugaku was a traitor that talked in his sleep, finally just spent the night with the most beautiful women in the world for him, and he just had a night of passion that he sure wanted to have again. So he would make sure to live through this war, marry Mikoto and make her life a happy one. After all she was already doing that for him. Naruto was smelling something nice, warm and tasty. Just how early did Mikoto wake up just to make breakfast? Mikoto walked to where he was sleeping. Naruto, it's time to wake up sleepyhead. What would happen if the enemy attacked? He got up to be so close to Mikoto's face and kissed her lips. The enemy are at least a mile away from here and they are having breakfast too. So let's enjoy the morning and wait for the fun to start. Mikoto was not sure how he knew that, but he had never been wrong so far. As Naruto finished eating and sent some shadow clones to do the cleaning. Thanks for the breakfast, my love. Mikoto could not help but to blush. How long till they get here? Mikoto asked him. Oh, by the pace they are taking about 4 hours. They either are enjoying the scenery or they are still waiting for info or orders. Mikoto, promise me one thing, promise me that you will do your best so we can continue to live together. Mikoto could only look at his with her Jujutsu active. You don't even need to ask, you are my life, maybe one of these days you will do the decent thing and finally make me your wife. Naruto was thinking. Hey, wasn't the guy supposed to propose? Ah well, as long as he had her approval, what's the big deal? I will marry you and we will have a few kids. Mikoto still looked at him and smiled. How many? Naruto got up and got ready for combat. How many you wish to give me? He said as he walked out of the tent. The enemies started running. They will be here in 30 minutes, guess they got what they were waiting for. Naruto looked at Fugaku's smiling face, he began to see what they were waiting for. It was confirmation that he was there. Fugaku had betrayed him and the village yet again. Thanks to Kushina, his armor had a new seal engraved on, was in for a nasty surprise. People, the enemy is inbound with 400 Iwa ninja. They will be here in 30 minutes. He looked in the direction of Fugaku, let's be ready and give the enemy the end they deserve. Minato was ready, his brand new 3-pronged kunai had arrived the evening before. As the enemy came into view, they focused their attacks on him. He used shadow clones to keep them busy. Minato had sent him a note on a battle plan and he was doing it. As Naruto kept the enemy busy, he asked his fellow ninja to throw the kunai in the storage scrolls he threw at them. They did, but they missed very badly. As the last of the clones was killed, the field was covered in smoke for a second. In that second, Minato disappeared in a yellow flash, going from kunai to kunai, killing enemies on the way. At the end, only one enemy survived. It took Minato seconds to kill 399 ninja. Today the name of the yellow flash of Konoha would be feared in Iwa, but they would learn this much later. As Naruto turned around, Fugaku used a henge to look like an enemy and used a rock jutsu. He heard him scream earth release. Rock pillar spears. But as the spears was going to touch him, he activated the seal that he had Kushina engrave. The seal sucked in the rock pillar spears and launched then in the direction of the person who cast the jutsu. Naruto smiled as the experiment was a success, the elemental jutsu reflection seal was a success. He would sure thank Kushina for inventing it. Fugaku was standing shaking as he was surrounded by the rock spears. What would I do without you, Fugaku? If it wasn't for you, I would not be able to test this new seal our seal expert had spent so much time inventing. You really just love to keep my life interesting, don't you? Fugaku was cursing up a storm inside his head. Well, Captain, with that seal we are sure to be ready for anything the enemy can throw at us. Fugaku pretended to pat his shoulder, but he really tried to slap an explosive tag on him. Tried being the keyword. Naruto removed the tag and placed it on Fugaku. As he walked away laughing, he activated the tag. He had expected for Naruto to burst into flames till there was nothing left but a pile of ash. Too bad he was the one that received a cremation funeral while still laughing like a maniac. I did say give the enemy what they deserve. Naruto walked towards the body of the enemy leader. He took a scroll from his vest pocket. He read it and was satisfied. He really should have told them to burn this. Fugaku, this will prove your guilt. Naruto walked towards Kushina and smiled. The seal was a success. Too bad that it is a single use, but if you improve it, this will keep of ninja alive. Kushina was jumping for joy. Her experiment worked. Now she needed to improve it to hold more THAN1 charge. Maybe with Minato's help this could be the best defense seal ever created. Mikoto walked towards Naruto and with a look of worry she asked, was killing Fugaku truly necessary? You know that the council will try to use this to try and get rid of you. He did not say anything, he simply pointed at a scroll that he took from his vest as he asked the question. Read this and then you tell me if I was right. Trust me, my love. I would not do it unless it was for the good of our village. Mikoto was curious as to what was on the scroll, but she would always trust in her lover. She read it once and once again with her Jujutsu active. There is no doubt. This is our current deployment schedule, restock and reinforcements. This would cause this camp to be destroyed in the wrong hands. I also saw the contract out on your life. It appears more info would be delivered if they gave Fugaku your head. Yes, his death was over too quickly. Where did you get the tag from? Naruto smiled at her. Fugaku tried placing it on me. So I just returned the favor. I did not activate the tag, he did. Mikoto laughed at what she heard. Fugaku was now not going to be trying to separate the two of them anymore. Well, since he is gone, and I don't think the enemy are anywhere near today. How about we have a light lunch and we can discuss when to have our wedding? Naruto walked towards the tent arm in arm. How about we also discuss the honeymoon while we are at it? Mikoto smiled and kissed him on the cheek. I love you, Naruto. You always know what to say to make me happy. After 2 years of fighting, the war was almost over. Who knew Inoki was such a stubborn cage? The invasion had proven to be a huge mistake and without their secret informant, they had no clue of what Konoha had prepared. Naruto was sure of two important things. Inoki's pride was costing his village a lot more than he and their council was making public. The other was that if Kagami was telling him in his reports that the death of Fugaku actually had a positive effect on the clan as a whole. It seems Fugaku had been extorting money from the businesses in the clan grounds. Well, that explained why so many businesses would go under on their clan grounds. Fugaku the idiot had caused many to go bankrupt. Makoto was practically singing out of sheer joy. She got to practice a lot of her lover's techniques, and Naruto got to spend a few evenings alone talking about clan issues. The planning of the wedding did not take long at all. Minato and Kushina would stand as the best man and maid of honor. It was clear that their honeymoon would have to be in a particularly expected place. The bedroom in the new home that the businesses that had been in the clan grounds bought for him and Makoto. They did it to thank him for putting an end to Fugaku. The lawsuits hit Fugaku and his relatives hard. They lost all their possessions, bank savings, and were sentenced to 230 years in prison with hard labor and no parole. Extortion was punished considering the amount that was taken, and since it sent several wealthy businesses bankrupt, the amount was staggering. Naruto simply said it would have been more merciful to have them lose an arm. Makoto smiled at him and told him that this way the businesses could reopen again and it would benefit the village as a whole. That made sense. The way the last battles happened was gruesome. Naruto had to go completely into Wolf Sage form and kill the last members of Iwa's Anbu. The fighting had gotten to the point that Inoki had to start to consider sending the genin of the village to fight. When the situation reached to that point, the council told him that if he even sent one of the genin they would defect to Konoha, and so would all the ninjas still alive at that point. If you do that, you clearly show us that your ego is the only thing you value and not the welfare of your village. The council told him that, and with anger in his face and disappointment in his heart he agreed. The war would be over and peace would return to the elemental nations. As the last thing to take care of, treaties between each of the villages was signed. The treaties were of non-aggression on each other. This prevented the nations in engaging in what would be revenge for their respectable ninja. Konoha only lost one, so they were not about to consider it. The death was a suicide after all. Suna went even further than anyone expected, they signed a full alliance with Konoha. Especially since Jiraiya had actually found out what happened to their missing Kage. It turns out that he was killed and turned into a puppet by Sasori, the former student of Lady Chiyo, in order to cause the war. He wanted a lot of dead bodies to choose from to make puppets and to prolong his life. Inoki, being the schemer that he was, did someone no one expected. He simply said this. Iwa will be allies with Konoha if they agree that the child of the next Hokage married on his family. This will create a lasting bond. Hiruzen told him that the next Kage would actually be Minato Namikaze. Minato wanting to never fight Iwa in the near future or ever really. He agreed to it. If he had a son he would marry the next eligible daughter of Inoki's family line. He explained to Kushina, who stormed off towards where Inoki was staying at. She simply kicked in the door, knocking out the guards, and marched to Inoki, who was looking rather pale. She took him by his head and lifted him in the air. Let's get this straight. If my son marries he will live in Konoha or I will send you to your grave. Inoki did not even wait a second to agree to it. Seeing that she got what she wanted cleared, she let him go and he fell to the ground. For the first time in his life he was glad that the next Kage was Minato. If it had been Kushina he would fear for his health. In life not all plans happened as planned, and Makoto's wedding had been one of those. Minato and Kushina were present at the wedding. Just not the way that they had planned. First change was that the date was moved because Makoto was 2 months pregnant. If you sleep with your significant other so many times, it was bound to happen. So the wedding turned into a double wedding. Tsume and Inoichi Yamanaka stood at the wedding as Minato's best man and maid of honor. The real shock was that Hiashi Hyuga and his wife stood as the best man and maid of honor for Naruto's and Makoto's wedding. It appears that Makoto wanted to have peace between the two clans. Naruto agreed to it mainly because whatever would make his wife happy he would not even consider disagreeing. In the festivities afterwards he told his best friend Koji and some of his other former classmates this very same explanation. Minato joked as told him that he was just married and he was already so whipped. I like living in a happy home, you try it your way and you will see the wisdom of my next words. If mama is happy the family is happy, if mama is mad then the family will be sad. The best men of both Minato and Naruto could only tell the men present that Naruto was wise to see that. Hiashi even told them if they had someone tell him that at his wedding, his marriage could have been a lot happier. His wife was a beautiful lady, but if you really angered her. Let's just say that the first weeks of the marriage Hiashi spent them alone in a cold hospital room. The ladies asked Makoto what would they name their child. Everyone believed that the first child would have the parents' names. She clearly told them. If I have a daughter Yukina, but if I have a boy Itachi. They asked what if Naruto disagreed. My husband will always do what makes me happy. He is just that sweet to me. If I decided it he will agree. Tsunade, who was there for the free drinks, joked with Orochimaru and Jiraiya. She flat out told them, well since we just finished a pair weddings. Why don't you and Orochimaru make it official and tie the knot already? She asked Jiraiya in a drunken tone of voice. Orochimaru simply stared at her. I have a better suggestion, why don't you marry him, Tsunade? Jiraiya was happy to hear that, only to hear her scream. I wouldn't marry that pervert if he was the last man on the entire world. She punched him with all her strength, sending Jiraiya flying into the air in the direction of the female side of the public hot springs. A few moments later he was savagely beaten by the ladies bathing at the time. The life of Mikoto and Naruto was pretty happy, all things considered. At this point in his life he decided to join Anbu. Most people consider him insane. Some others consider him too cruel. The Hokage sent the application to Sakumo, who had gone back to his favorite position as their commander. The Anbu test was gruesome, painful, and a true nightmare. Some of the senior Anbu joked that they could not pass it. Naruto did not only pass it, he passed it with perfect performance on all segments of the test. Everything from stealth to Kenjutsu was tested, and he made it look easy. The commander was reading the newest bingo book and saw a picture of Naruto. He simply told the Anbu watching, "This is a celebration of the birth of a new guardian of Konoha. What would you expect from Konoha's Crimson Fiend?" One of the Anbu looked at him and she said, "I expect him to be royally pissed off when he finds he will not be able to use his comfy gear." Every Anbu laughed at the joke. He appeared right behind her and said, "Says who? Ever hear of a hinge?" She looked at the person behind her and wondered why the man had an Oni mask. Well, only you would do the test using a shadow clone. Now the Anbu who had been watching the test looked shocked. He did all that with a shadow clone. "So Oni, mind telling me why you did it?" Sakumo asked, wanting the people to hear it. "I felt that it might be a challenge doing it that way. It would be too troublesome to do it normally, sir." The only person who was smiling was a Nara clan member. Boy, this guy sure knew how to surprise people. "Alright Oni, I have 6 bandit camps you need to exterminate, here are the locations." The commander tossed him the scroll and he caught it with one hand. "It should take you 2 days at most. So enjoy," said the commander smiling behind his mask. "Will do, sir." Naruto disappeared using the body flicker technique. "Why did you not ask him to change his gear, sir?" Sakumo looked at the people and answered, "Fear is a powerful tool. Those who read that entry in the bingo book will know what fear really is before they meet with their maker." For the next 6 months he did the most horribly difficult missions. Tsunade began to wonder if he would ever be in a hospital. His home life was happy and his love for Mikoto grew with each day. He always had time for his wife and even asked how she and their child was doing. Mikoto truly had a peaceful and happy pregnancy. That is until the day that her son was to be born. Her water broke and the pain of the contractions was clearly showing. Naruto and the medics got her to the delivery room. That is when the doctor told him to wait in the waiting room. When Mikoto heard that, she yelled so that it was heard all the way to the waiting room, "No, get that bastard right there with me. I would rip his heart out and shove it straight into his. How dare he subject me to this? Bring him here so I can send him to hell for doing this to me." Naruto sat down and looked shocked as his wife screamed a stream of death threats and insult. One of the men looked at him with pity. "Don't worry, she is only dealing with her first childbirth. It usually get better after this one. Believe me, I have 4 and I am still alive." After 7 horrible hours of worrying and pacing in the waiting room, each of the expecting fathers took turns in making the groove in the carpet floor get deeper. The doctor finally came out, "Mr. Uchiha, Mr. Naruto Uchiha." Naruto raised his face as he stopped walking. "Well, congratulations, Mr. Uchiha. You have a healthy baby boy. Come, they both want to see you." For someone who wanted to kill him a moment ago, Mikoto looked radiant, smiling and very happy with their baby in their arms. He had his black hair and his mother's eyes. "Sorry to make you suffer, my love." She stopped him by telling him, "This is a wonderful gift, you have nothing to apologize for. But next time I want painkillers." Naruto looked at the doctor and said, "Me too." The doctor laughed as he took the baby and handed him to his father. "So what is his name?" "I need it for the register." Naruto waited for his wife to decide and she did, smiling at her husband and child. "He is Itachi Uchiha." She told the doctor and he wrote it down. After much time, trouble and worry, Itachi was born into the world. Naruto had now another reason why to grow stronger. 2 months later, Kushina too was to give birth to a baby boy, and this time Naruto looked at Minato go through the same things he did. Death threats and insults included. He told him his experience and it made him feel relaxed a bit. He joked that thank goodness she wasn't a Jinchuriki anymore. If she was, she might actually kill him using one of the Biju's techniques. Kurama laughed at him from inside Naruto. She sure would have done that. The pain of childbirth was not something to be taken lightly, even if someone was the strongest of the tailed beasts. Little man Manamikaze was born and he had the eyes of his father Minato, but the red hair of his mother. Naruto told the doctor that he hoped he wasn't born with the temper of his mother too. This made the entire room laugh, well, all except Kushina, who just smiled. Madara Uchiha was readying a new scroll that his trusted spy delivered to him. "So my grandson had a child of his own, and even that Namikaze boy had a child. I am happy for my grandson." This will be the motivation he needs to grow stronger. Maybe he will be the one to save the Ten-Tails beast from her sad fate. I have to get moving and start a group already. I have much research to do. The extraction technique needs to be perfect. I will not have my grandson die no matter how noble this goal may be. Many SS rank missing ninja had heard of this new group that was forming. That Oni masked Anbu killed all the weaker ones and the surviving ones feared that he would go after them next. They each was given an invitation to join a secret group that would bring world peace. The leader was a ninja of the now dead village hidden in the whirlpools. Of all the missing ninja of that rank only 5 went to join. We need 5 more, but it was a good start. Oni will take care of scaring some more away. Madara began to think for himself as he looked at the progress the group was making. The Akatsuki would be complete with 5 more members. Maybe he could get Tsunade to join them. They could always use someone with her medical knowledge, especially to perfect the extraction process. Being an Anbu, having so many duties, a wife and child, and to top it off being told that he had to do both design a new academy curriculum and be present for all major clan meetings. He was tempted to tell them that Mikoto should be called more than him. She could be the future matriarch of the Uchiha clan. Kagami would not listen and flat out told him if he had to accept the position of clan head. He was the strongest male Uchiha after all. Kagami wanted to retire and enjoy the company of his wife and grandchild. Naruto had an extremely busy life, he arrived sometimes so tired that he did not have dinner, he simply crawled into bed and fell asleep. Minato being the man so obsessed with developing new techniques took the easy way out. At the very least what Naruto called the easy way out. He simply took a team of genin. The most surprising things about it was that Tsukumo had a son. Naruto didn't even know that his former teacher, now commander, was even married. Kakashi was in most respect a complete and utter fanboy. He idolized Naruto to the point that his father worried of his son being gay. When he and a teammate started dating it was a source of relief for the commander. Rin was a nice, tender, and sweet girlfriend to Kakashi. The most pain in the training was from Obito Uchiha. The brat had an ego the size of a Biju. So of course he believed that he was the only one worthy to date Rin. He did all manners of stupid things to show off and show his superiority over Kakashi. He failed completely, if anything his attempt made Kakashi look like an absolute genius. In the end Rin was happy, Kakashi was happy, and Obito was getting his regular servings of humble pie. Ashina was busy with being an Anbu torture and interrogation and being a new mom to 2 little boys she joked. She often felt like she took care of 2 little boys. Menma and Minato did mention that they only had 1 son and she was being tender to him. She simply told him to help keep his gear in order and help clean their home once in a while and she would consider it to stop treating him like a little boy. Kushina's life as a former Jinchuriki made her job of interrogation a breeze. She had all those horrible nightmares that the Biju that was in her gave her early in her life. She developed a Jinjutsu that made the target experience one of said nightmares. The poor idiots caved in mere seconds and would tell her everything just so that they would not go back in that Jinjutsu. Some of the toughest rogue ninja were reduced to crying, sobbing, babies, some even lost control of their bodily functions. The rogue ninja knew that if you ever were sent to interrogation department of Konoha and the person asking was a red-haired woman, don't act tough, just spill everything. Tell her whatever she wanted to know. The rogues did not call her the red nightmare of Konoha for nothing. As time went on and days became weeks and weeks months. Naruto got used to his ever hectic and troublesome life. Mikoto and Itachi turned out to be his only refugee. The constant problems between clans and within clans made him wonder how did the Hokage survive this. If he simply had to deal with the problems of one clan and he considered it to be a heavy burden, what would the Hokage face having to deal with the problems of the entire village and its relationship with the other hidden villages? One thing was certain that if the position was ever placed on his plate, someone would literally have to force it on him and he had the sneaking suspicion that it would be done just like when he was made clan head. The previous Hokage would pretty much tell him for the benefit of the village he had to be Hokage. But he had one shining hope to avoid that potential nightmare. Minato Namikaze was a very strong ninja, all that Naruto needed was to teach him about politics, negotiations, laws, treaties, and administrative skills. Just a few things it would take him no more than a year, maybe 2 at most. He even contemplated teaching him the Shadow Clone Jutsu, but the requirements to preform it were severe. He would have to have cage-level chakra and immense control. The technique was once considered dangerous after all. But if he managed to do it, then the training would go along faster than planned. Orochimaru flat out told the Hokage that the only way he would ever consider becoming Hokage was on his deathbed. He simply had way too much fun in his labs, doing research and trying to make something that would turn a common genin into a juggernaut. He knew that peace was a brief time in between wars. It never lasted as long as there were greedy people willing to do anything to achieve their selfish goals. Tsunade was more than happy to be considered for the position. In her mind, who deserved it more than an immensely talented, cunning, and beautiful lady such as herself? Her research had progressed a little but never to her liking. The fountain of youth seems was something she was obsessed about, and it seems it was far from her grasp. She needed to find a way to make herself eternally young. The lose of her beauty should be considered a world tragedy. No sacrifice was too much by the people to ensure that would not come to pass. Hiruzen knew all too well that the position of Hokage involved thinking of the welfare of others ahead of your own. It was a position that demanded countless sacrifices, and many of those causing pain and suffering to the Hokage. He was to be the strongest of ninja just because it was what was necessary to survive the position in the first place. He considered the possible candidates to replace him as he looked at the folders in front of him. Orochimaru declined to even be considered. Naruto told him that his Anbu duties, clan duties, and family responsibilities were more than enough for him. If he added anything more, he was going to be in his grave before he was. Minato was willing, but needed a lot of training to prepare him to deal with the monster that waited him. The monster called paperwork. Tsunade was so self-absorbed that it made Hiruzen wonder if he kissed her reflection in the mirror every time she washed her teeth or fixed her hair. She was definitely not in the right mindset for the position. She would sooner sacrifice the entire village to find a way to stay young than think about the welfare of the people of the village.